This is dedicated to the homies that was down since day one. Welcome to Drop D.
Welcome to Quick Hits, a JFK assassination news and notes podcast with your hosts, Rob Clark and Doug Campbell.
Hey, what is up, everybody, and welcome to Quick Hits, a JFK assassination research news and notes podcast with me, Doug Campbell, and the other 50% of your hosts, my good friend, the man, Big Bad Bob himself, Rob Clark. What up, Rob? What's going on, buddy?
What's up, Doug? Once again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. It's been too long, entirely too long.
Too long, man. I had to go to the beach for a little while. Had to do that. Took a little break.
Damn runners.
Yeah, I pulled a runner. Haven't done an episode of the Dallas action this month, but that was the plan. You know, take the month off, as it were. But delay here, delay there. But here we are, dude, doing it again. And this time we have a special guest. How would you, my man, like to introduce our special guest on episode number 48 of this very fine podcast?
It would be my pleasure. So today, joining us, if you've listened to my show before, you've definitely heard him on there. He's a fan favorite. He is a extraordinary researcher in his own right. And you can check out all his stuff at gil-jesus.com. Mr. Gil Jesus, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure for you to be, for you to be here.
It is
for us.
You read my mind.
That shit goes without saying, though, man.
You read my mind.
I know. Uncle Dave over there in San Diego is happy. You're one of his favorite researchers, and he's been begging us to have you on this show to hash it out with us. So I know Uncle Dave is happy.
Momo, Rob just straight up told homie, the pleasure's all yours.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm just messing with you, Rob. I'm just messing with you, buddy. But no, Gil, it's actually a pleasure to meet you. I have been reading your research on the old interweb for years. Measured, analytically sound work, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Like Rob said, for me, it's a pleasure for me to be here. And I've heard your show before, and I've always wanted to be on it. So thank you for inviting me.
No worries, dude. No worries. Well, guys, we have a bit of breaking news.
Topical news.
Yeah, we'll do a little news. It's not breaking news. It broke, I believe, around September 9th is when at least the thing I've got here, the sound bites from that we're going to hear later is from September 9th. But it broke that weekend, of course. As I said before, I went on vacation, and I told my wife, you know what, I'm going to tune out of everything. Except that one thing we had planned, Rob. But I said, I'm just going to tune out. And, of course, this broke over that weekend. Since our last episode, guys, a big development. And I wanted to read a little bit, listen to some sound bites of this gentleman in the story, and get you guys' take, Mr. Gill and Mr. Big Bad Bob, the announcement of an upcoming book containing a startling allegation by a member of the Kennedy Secret Service detail, former Special Agent Paul Landis, who was Mrs. Kennedy's agent. The book is called The Final Witness, due to be published, I'm sure, between now and the 60th anniversary. And, of course, the blockbuster claim that's making all the news being made now after this event. Mr. Landis claims that he found an intact, pristine bullet in the limousine and then placed it on President Kennedy's gurney by the president's feet. Now, not only that, but Landis now asserts that the bullet known as the quote-unquote magic bullet that we know as Commission Exhibit 399, the linchpin that holds the flimsy Warren report together. According to Landis, that bullet is, in fact, the bullet that he now claims 60 years later that he found in the presidential limo and placed on the president's gurney. I want to read a little bit for you guys from Kayla Epstein, an article at BBC News, just to catch anybody up that might not be aware of it or of the details, if I may. From BBC, it says Paul Landis. And guys, Gil, Rob knows this. Jump in, dude. Anytime something occurs to you, just jump right in.
Okay.
Paul Landis, an 88-year-old former Secret Service agent who witnessed the president's death at close range, says in an upcoming memoir that he took a bullet from the car after Mr. Kennedy was shot and then left it on the former president's stretcher at the hospital. It might seem like a minute detail in a case that has been poured over since the 60s, and for which the government laid out an exhaustive report. Let me just stop right there. Man, yeah, it's 26 volumes worth of information, but I don't necessarily think the report itself was all that exhaustive. But that's just me. The BBC continues, but to individuals who have spent decades looking at every shred of evidence, Mr. Landis's account is a major and unexpected development. This really is the most significant news in the assassination since 1963, said James Robinault, a historian and Kennedy expert who worked with Mr. Landis to prepare him for his public revelations. You guys got any thoughts so far? I know you guys got a lot of thoughts. Rob, you've talked about this on the Lone Gunman podcast already.
Yeah, I mean... Go ahead, Gil.
He said that, I think he said, didn't he say that he put it down near the president's feet on the stretcher?
Yes.
Yeah, and in 2013, one of the nurses over at the Parkland Hospital said that she saw a bullet, but it was up between the president's collarbone, I think, and his head wound. But she saw a bullet on the stretcher. Now, it could be that, he might misremember where exactly on the stretcher he put it, or it could be that somebody else moved it. But there is verification for his story from the nurse. What the heck was her name now? Let's see. Phyllis Hall.
Phyllis Hall, yeah.
Phyllis Hall saw a bullet on the stretcher. And she gave that interview to the London Telegraph in 2013. So I got this on my YouTube channel, by the way, if anybody wants to look at it. She says it at 2:07 in the video. She says she saw a bullet on Kennedy's stretcher. She puts it in a different location, but that doesn't mean that if the location is wrong, that it was never there. You know what I mean? Some people were going to argue, well, he said he put it at the feet and she saw it up near the head. Well, what does that mean? It wasn't there? No, of course not. It could be that one or the other might just be wrong with the location. I mean, this was 60 years ago. So, and they're getting old, so they might forget where they put it. But there is verification for a bullet being on the stretcher.
Well, there's even further verification, and I am remiss in my duties because I meant to get a little bit of this audio, Gil. And Rob, you may know her name. Was it Aubrey something? Another nurse at Parkland. There's audio of her deposition, her interview with the House Select Committee on Assassinations, in which she states that she saw a bullet on the president's gurney as well. What is her name? You guys know? I can't remember.
Audrey Bell.
Audrey Bell, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got her entire deposition over on the Lone Gunman from the Vault YouTube or audio stream, the entire thing. So definitely worth a listen. And again, it's the poo-pooers who love to poo-poo any kind of new revelations that come out. It's right for the picking for sure. I mean, it sucks this guy waited as long for this to come out. But, just to break it down to its bare bones, if what he's saying is true, then it changes everything. it changes the entire shot sequence. It changes the amount of shots.
Absolutely, because
down the line.
either you have a separate bullet, that bullet and CE-399 is separate, which means there were two shooters, or they've been confused, and that bullet CE-399 was never found on the stretcher.
Right. So there's even indications that the bullet found, or a bullet found on a stretcher, had a pointed tip.
Right.
I think Thomas and the guy that found it, that's what he said. And of course the Carcano bullet has a rounded nose instead of a pointed tip.
That's right. O.P. Wright told what's his name, the guy that did 6 Seconds, Josiah Thompson, that the bullet was pointed. And
so
he identified a pointed bullet that he was shown as similar to the one that he had seen. So either this bullet that Landis found is the CE-399 bullet, and that was the one that he put on the stretcher, and that's the one that they found. Either that, if that's the case, then it didn't go through two men, and you have a second shooter, or they're two different bullets, and you have two different shooters. Either way, Rob, you're right. This changes everything.
I agree with that 100%. Well, what he's done is he's basically called out the ridiculous magic bullet theory, hasn't he? I mean, like, it's bullshit, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
That came out of Kennedy's back, didn't?
Right.
And
it never penetrated the body.
Yeah, and if that is 399 on that lip between the back seat and where the sheet metal starts, right? If that is 399, if it came from over by the trunk, it damn sure didn't come out of Connolly's thigh.
Right. Exactly. That means there were two shooters.
At a bare minimum. I think there were more.
I do, too. I think he was shot from two different directions, the front and the rear.
Yeah. From up high, from the rear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can talk about that some more. What we were, before we went on the air, that 30-06 shell, that's, that makes all kinds of alarm bells go off for me.
Yep.
Well, let's listen to some sound bites, guys, of Mr. Landis. I have a few here. I believe this was uploaded on September 9th on YouTube. It is Paul Landis and this other guy, Robinault. Is that his name? His co-author.
Yeah, I think that's the guy that helped him write his book.
Yeah. Or as some in the community say, his CIA handler. Paul Landis with host Gaddy Schwartz. Here we go. We got a few. Let's check it out. Momo, Landis 1, please, sir.
We arrived at Parkland Memorial Hospital.
Hang on, Doug. Pause it real quick.
I jumped out.
I got you.
Did he just come from the bar, or what's going on here with Mr. Landis?
Were they at the cellar drinking all night, or what?
Yeah, man. He's there with Robinault and Johnny Walker, apparently. But
and Evan Williams.
Evans passed out in the green room.
Jim Beam.
Actually. Yeah.
Jim Beam.
Let's see what he and old gentleman.
All right, sorry. Go ahead and start it over.
Let's see what he and Gentleman Jack have to say here.
Out of the follow-up car and raced up to Mrs. Kennedy in the limo. I reached over and took her by the shoulders and asked her if I could help her. She said, no. I want to stay with him. I want to stay with the president. About that time, Clint entered the rear of the car and realized that Mrs. Kennedy was hiding the president's head and didn't want anybody to see the head wound. So he immediately convinced her. He took off his suit coat, covered her head, his president's head, and they started to get up to leave the limousine. In the meantime, while this was happening, I happened to look to the right where Mrs. Kennedy was sitting, and sitting in a pool of blood there, I saw two bright brass bullet fragments. I picked one of them out, looked at it, and it was kind of like the end of my little pinky. It was mushroomed, and I put it back right exactly where I found it.
Now that's something that's a story he's told in the past, I think, right? The bullet fragments are not new in his story. Hello, Rob.
Yeah, when he
Yes,
talks
cue,
about
man.
the
That's your cue to back me up and go, hell yeah, man.
My mic was muted. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Gil.
But Gil's here.
Gil.
when he's making the he's recollecting what happened with the coat, and how I think it was Clint Hill put his coat over Kennedy's head, these are things that when you're looking at someone's story, you look to see how accurate it is. These are things that I've heard from other people, that she was either ashamed or afraid of anybody seeing him like that, and so they covered his head when they took the body into the hospital. So to me, his memory seems to be okay. He's not misremembering anything, because he's saying the same thing that other people have said.
Man, he's definitely got his story together, Yeah.
Yeah.
Some might say too well. I don't necessarily think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's see. Another little soundbite of Mr. Landis.
And by then, Mrs. Kennedy was standing up, and I was looking around for other agents. I didn't see anybody, but I saw an intact, fully bullet on the back of the seat where the cushioning met the trunk of the car. And I picked it up and looked at it, and it was, only thing I noticed that was wrong with it were bullet striations. There was no other deformities. I started to put it back. Mrs. Kennedy and Clint were leaving the car, and I made a quick decision. I didn't see anybody to secure the car. People were emerging on the car. I did not want this piece of evidence to disappear, and I slipped it into my pocket.
Okay, that I understand, but I am having a hard time with not giving this to a superior. There's part of me that kind of goes, hey, wait a minute, when it comes to this next part that he talks about, putting it on the gurney. Let's check that out, guys.
As we raced through the lobby of the emergency room, we got to trauma room 1. They had to pivot the gurney that the president's body was on and push it into the trauma room. There was a crowd that kind of had joined us doing this. I was pushed right up next to the president's body and standing right next to his feet. Most everybody in the room was focused on the head wound. I could not look, but I knew I would pass out if I saw it. And all these things are whirling through my mind on what to do. And I realized this was a perfect place to leave a bullet with the president's body, and it would be found during the autopsy. And about that time, so I reached out, I put the bullet on the gurney right by his feet.
See, man, I don't know. Rob, Gil,
that's
something.
Well,
yeah,
like
you're
I
right.
said in my show, I mean, you got to put yourself in this guy's shoes.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
I mean, he was young, man. He was in his 20s. You see the president's head get blown off right in front of you. This is your job to protect these people. This guy was probably freaking the fuck out. if he'd never seen anybody killed before or dead, especially for it to happen right in front of him, then you're in the heat of the moment. You're in a high speed. Dash to get to the hospital, and it's just chaos everywhere. So I don't fault the guy for anything that he did or didn't do in the heat of the moment. Should he have tucked it in between Kennedy's toes like a cigarette in between fingers? Maybe.
You know what, dude? You're right. You're right. It could just be. It's probably just cognitive dissonance on my part, right? Because, the cognitive dissonance is like, there's no fucking way you just put it on a stretcher. You're going to give it to somebody,
people seem to think that these guys are just robotic in their job duties, and they know exactly what to do in the light of everything. But in reality, it was most of these guys' first time. For this to happen to any of them.
They were in a state of shock. Who knows what
like my own cognitive.
Who knows what somebody's going to do in a state of shock?
Exactly.
You don't know how you're going to react. And you're right. What he should have done was he should have marked it and given it to a superior. That would have been the right way to do it.
But he made a mistake.
Under the circumstances, who knows what somebody would do in a state of shock.
You're exactly right. It's just my own cognitive dissonance not allowing me to accept that, he fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, his mind was racing. He messed up, and I kind of go back and forth with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, if that is $3.99, and he's making no bones about it that it's $3.99, then it's the magic bullet, right?
Yeah. I saw something years ago. I don't want to get into it too much, but I saw something years ago that put me in a state of shock. And 4 hours later, I'm still asking myself, did I really see what I thought I saw?
Yeah, man.
So, who knows how long it lasts, too.
Mr. Landis continues.
When you found that bullet, this bullet has become the focal point of so much history. When you found that bullet, was it lodged in a cushion? You said that it had striations. Was it lodged in the cushion? Was it just sitting on the back of the seat next to where the convertible came down? How would you describe its condition when you found it?
It was perfect condition. It was not buried or sunken in a seam. It was just lying where the seam on the back of the seat meets the middle of the trunk. And that's where they would have attached the bubble top if they had or were putting it on.
And you got a good look at it. Did it have any blood or any sort of matter on it?
I didn't notice any blood. It was like everybody wrote or says, it was a pristine bullet. The only thing on it were rifle striations. And that's all I noticed at the time.
That's all he noticed. But this, like you guys were saying, we were saying before we went on the air, this absolutely changes everything.
Oh, yeah.
Changes
Definitely.
everything. Because as
the shot sequence to the so-called missed shots, it changes everything. I mean,
Sure.
The whole magic bullet theory was, came up with to explain things. And, if you only have 3 spent shells on the 6th floor, then there definitely has to be more than 3 shots here. Like I said, it just changes everything from the shot sequence to the amount of shots. And
even if the witnesses heard only 3 shots, now you got to ask yourself, was it really 3 shots or 3 volleys of shots?
Right.
Could it have been as much as 9 shots?
Yeah, these are untrained ears in the heat of the moment with echoes all over the place. And, everybody's always said that the shot sequence, how it goes, like boom, 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 that the second and third shot were too close together to be coming from the same place. So, yeah, it definitely changes everything. And, when you take into consideration the acoustic evidence from the HSCA panel, and
The
they
witness-
say
the-
there
the
were
wit-
4
the wit-
shots.
The witness is saying they smell gun smoke, gunpowder on the ground level. How the hell does gunpowder get from the 6th floor down to the ground level? There's something else going on here.
Well, nobody
Oh,
even
absolutely.
mentioned smelling gunpowder on the 6th floor while they're
No.
searching.
No,
So
nobody smelled
you
the
think it would
gunpowder on
fill
the
up that
6th floor
6th floor pretty good.
or any other floor. The guys right below him didn't smell any gunpowder.
Yeah,
But the people on the street, smelled it.
Now, let me ask you guys about this, and we talked a little bit about this before we went on air. The bullet where it was found, as Paul Landis describes it, where the back of the seat meets. It's where they would attach the bubble top, basically where the back of the seat meets the trim and the sheet metal of the car on top in the back. And we were talking about, there's always been the assertion that wound, as it was probed, the Kennedy's back wound, and it didn't go very far,
Right.
And what Landis is asserting now is that, this bullet fell out of that back wound.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were talking before, Rob, you mentioned it, a badly loaded round or a dud of a round, right?
Yeah, underpowered.
Underpowered, which makes me think of a reload. A lot of people, some people load their own
old
ammunition.
ammo.
Right, old ammo, or like I said, a reload. Now, think about Lauren Hall, Lawrence Howard, and the Johnson 30-06 rifle, right? We talked about it before. The shell casing that was found on the roof of the Dallas County Records building, and I believe it was 78, by that HVAC repairman, was crimped on the end as if possibly a sabot or sabot, I don't know how you say it, maybe French people say it, a sabot. I don't know.
Sabot.
A sabot.
Croissant.
Right, croissant. And now think about this. If you wanted to introduce Mannlicher Carcano evidence, then this is totally speculative, right? Completely. But if you wanted to introduce ballistics evidence of the Carcano type, right? And that would be smaller than a 30-06. So you use a sabot, put a Mannlicher bullet in a 30-06 shell, load it yourself. Like, what if they loaded it a little too light when they reloaded that round?
Here's another thing, Doug. There were reloads being done in Dallas by the gun shops.
Dude, every gun shop does it.
They were doing reloads.
Oh, for the 6.5s.
John Thomas Mason was doing it in his gun shop.
Now, see, I've never heard that, Gil, that he was actually reloading Carcano ammo.
They were doing reloads, and he had gotten a bunch of them from Johnny Bringear. I forget how many boxes he bought, but they were doing it for hunting. They were doing it for because you don't need military ammunition to go hunting. So they were doing it to reload the 6.5 for hunting, soft loads they called them, and So I mean, you're right. If it's underpowered, there's only two ways it can be underpowered. Either the ammunition is just so bloody old that it couldn't go through anything, or that they when they reloaded them with the wrong amount of powder.
Yep, a mistake reloading, and
Yeah, and the FBI did a search of the gun shops in Dallas to find out who was doing the reloads, and they found out who this guy was. But you know what he said? He said he never sold any ammunition to Oswald, so they let it go.
Yeah.
They never found out they never asked him who he sold the ammunition to. They just said, "Oh, sell it to Oswald." Okay, fine, that's all right.
Did you sell any of this to
Oswald? I sold it to Alec Heidel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what makes me laugh about these Warren Commission followers, because if the evidence or the witness has anything to add to Oswald's guilt, they're credible. If they don't add to Oswald's guilt, they're not believable. That's the way these people are. That's how they measure a credibility of a witness, is whether or not he can add anything to Oswald's guilt. That's ridiculous. It is.
You're absolutely right, Gil.
You're 100% right.
It's ridiculous.
They're poo-pooing Paul Landis as a liar.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, he just wants to sell books. No, he's 88. I don't think he gives a shit about selling books at this point.
The reason Paul Landis is that much of a threat is because, there ain't much holding the fucking Warren report together.
Oh, no.
And what little bit is there is the magic bullet theory.
Right.
Without the magic bullet theory, everything else, it just it vaporizes. It's gone.
It's a house of cards. It's a house of cards.
Yeah.
You remember? You ever see the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you remember when he's talking to his cousin in the jail and he's got the playing card and he says, "This is the prosecutor's card. He wants you to think that he's building a brick wall and all the bricks look good and other things." And then he turns the card sideways. He says, "And when you look at it from a certain angle, you realize how thin his case really is."
Yeah.
He says it's all an illusion. That's all it is. And you know what? I posted 8 witnesses who saw smoke on the knoll. You know what the answer was from these Warren Commission supporters? Well, rifles don't put off smoke. Who the hell said it was a rifle? All the witnesses said that they saw smoke. That doesn't mean it was a rifle. I mean, they put things, they try to make it sound like all the witnesses, 8 witnesses, had this mass hallucination, or they all conspired to lie or something. I don't know. But instead of looking at it and saying, you got 8 witnesses here that all corroborate each other, they're all saying the same thing. The good book says the witness of 2 is true witness. I don't know. But they don't believe it. I think they're brainwashed.
Well,
I think people are brainwashed. They're afraid of the truth. They're afraid to hear the truth. And they've got their own truth, and that's what they believe. And God damn it, they're not going to believe anything else.
There's a certain segment, I agree, they're convinced that the government would not lie to them. They're convinced of that. And
the government would never lie.
I think that the Warren Commission defenders population is made up of like three types of people, right? The people who are convinced the government would not lie to them about anything, right? People with way too fucking much time on their hands, and people who are paid to defend the Warren report.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 type of people that will, the type of person that inserts themselves into the assassination research community, which is made up completely of people who research because they believe in conspiracy, but embed themselves in it to tell everybody they're fucking wrong. There's only 3 types, right?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And they're usually all got a little bit of all 3 of those in them.
And you know what? I think the best way I've ever heard this assassination ever explained was Harold Weisberg. He said this crime was beyond the capability of one man, Oswald, or anyone else. And on that basis, there was a conspiracy. That's the best way I've ever heard it explained. Harold Weisberg. God bless him.
Hell yeah.
That is a very, very good Weisberg quote from the king himself, man.
Yeah. He was a guy who was a Senate investigator, and he wasn't convinced. I mean, the way they did things in Dallas, oh my God, this was the perfect place to kill the president and get away with it. I mean, just the way they did things down there. I mean, they didn't care whether or not they convicted the right guy. All they wanted to do was convict the guy they arrested. That was the way they did police work. I've got
Amen, dude. Amen.
I've got links where Henry Wade, and I've heard the number anywhere from 19 to 25 convicted. Now, I'm not even talking about accused like Oswald. Convicted. 19 to 25 men for crimes they did not commit. Oh. And in 1954, he sent an innocent man to the electric chair. He convinced the jury to send an innocent man to the electric chair. This is Henry Wade, the same guy that was going to prosecute Oswald. All right, 19 to 25 of those convictions were overturned on DNA evidence. Now, he presented a case that was convincing enough either to a judge or a jury that the defendant was guilty. And he got those convictions, even though those people were innocent. They were later, some of them spent 14 to 15, 16 years in prison for a crime they never committed. This is the kind of thing that they did in Dallas. This is the way they did it. They wanted to convict the guy they arrested. They didn't give a shit whether or not they got the right guy. They didn't care. It didn't matter to them because as far as they were concerned, if he was arrested, he was the right guy.
He had some kind of ridiculous clearance rate, but it was like 99%. But
yeah, they interviewed him and he said, "How many times have you asked for the death penalty? 48. How many times have you got it? 47, something like that." I mean, it's ridiculous. That's all they cared about with his statistics. They didn't care whether or not they got the right guy. People ask me, "You mean to tell me that they would let the killer of one of their own officers off free to blame it on another guy, to frame another guy?" Yeah, that's what they did. Exactly. That's exactly the way they did things down there.
Yeah, he was going to get an arrest and conviction, regardless of anything.
Exactly.
That's the most important thing. Not justice, but
exactly. And you know how ridiculous it was? They had Will Fritz tried to get Wesley Frazier to sign a confession that he was involved in the president's murder. Can you believe that? They had no evidence against that kid. 19 years old. He put a typed confession in front of the kid and tried to get him to sign it. And he said, "No, I'm not signing it." I mean, and Fritz went off. I mean, this is the way they did things down there. And I'll tell you something else. If they didn't have a case against somebody, and it was a case as national as this case, that guy is not going to make it to trial, my friend. He is not. That case is never going to be tried because they don't have the evidence, and they're going to look stupid in the end. So what do? They let one of their buddies. They can't shoot him, but they let one of their buddies into the police station and let him have a go at it. There you go. End of story. Case closed.
Henry Wade. I remember that famous. There's a little clip of him. I believe it's close to midnight on the 22nd. He's being interviewed, and he goes, "Oh, we've already got this guy wrapped up in with a nice little bow.
Nice little bow at midnight on Friday."
Yeah, midnight on Friday.
They haven't even found the information yet on the rifle yet. They won't find it for another 4 hours. But he's got this case all wrapped up. Yeah, what evidence do you have? He brought a package to the building, and he was in the area he was in the area immediately before the shots were fired. Immediately before, 35 minutes. 35 minutes somebody saw him before the shooting on the 6th floor. You know how far away he could have gotten in 35 minutes? He could have gotten home in less than 35 minutes. He could have gotten back to his room, for Christ's sake. That don't mean anything. Oh, his fingerprints were on boxes on the 6th floor. Yeah, well, he was working on the 6th floor. So his fingerprints might be on boxes. That's no proof of guilt. And the fingerprints are on the top part of the boxes. How did he pick the boxes up and stack them when his fingerprints are on top? How do you pick up a box from the top of it if you don't have a loop or something on top of it to grab a handle? Come on. It's all bullshit.
Every bit of it. Every bit of it.
And you want me to tell you something? This is another thing that I want to mention before we go on. That every single piece of major piece of evidence in this case, from the rifle to the 3 shells on the 6th floor, to the 4 shells that were found at the Tippit murder scene, to Oswald's jacket under the car, to CE 399, to the backyard photographs. Every single piece of major evidence that they claim proved Oswald's guilt, every single piece of it was never authenticated by the person who found it. Imagine that.
Oh, there's no such thing as chain of custody in this case.
Boone found the rifle, and when they asked him in his testimony if he could identify that as the rifle he found, he said he couldn't. I can't be positive, he said. The others were not asked. The people who were asked could not identify that piece of evidence that they currently have in their possession, the government, as the evidence that they found. Every single piece of how does that happen?
Well,
how does that happen?
Boone finally did, but it was in fucking 1973.
Yeah, but how does that happen when in the case of the jacket, you don't even know who found it?
I know. Well, look at the Boone Weitzman. You know, they both signed affidavits on the 22nd that they found a 7.65 Mauser.
Right. And Roger Craig said it was stamped right on the rifle.
Yeah. And he said he was standing right there with Boone looking at the rifle, And they look down and they look, it's like they look down, look at each other.
And he
It's
said
a Mauser.
It was stamped on the rifle, and Weitzman even pointed to it.
Yeah.
7.65 Mauser. He even pointed to it.
And I think it's Boone that owned a sporting goods store,
It was Weitzman.
Was it Weitzman?
Okay, it was Weitzman. Yeah. Weitzman used to own a sporting goods store. Yeah.
Oh, and for those listeners who may not know, Boone and Weitzman were they Dallas PD or sheriff's deputies? Deputies.
Sheriff
deputies.
deputy.
Yeah, sheriff deputies.
Deputies.
Dallas County Sheriff. Liberty Lobby, Rob. Liberty Lobby. They were deputies, guys, and they were there when they found, and they signed affidavits on the 22nd. Hey, it was a 7.65 Mauser. And, you can see numerous news reports, breaking news reports. Officials say they found a 7.65 Mauser. I've seen a clip of Walter Cronkite saying that shit 3 times.
Yeah.
Then
he corrects it. Manlica Carchanto, he says.
Yeah.
Built in the town of Carchanto. Yeah, you know when it changed? You know when the type of rifle changed? When they found the paperwork. Once they found the paperwork that this rifle had been sold to A. Hiddell, all of a sudden it wasn't a Mauser anymore. It was a Manlica Carchanto. It's amazing. The whole case is bullshit.
But guys, what are we to make of and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but with Paul Landis, right?
Mm-hmm.
About his claim to not have even known about the magic bullet theory and CE 399 and the Warren report until 2016. He says that he was gifted a copy of Josiah Thompson's book, 6 Seconds in Dallas, in 2016, and he read it. And it was at that point he saw the photographs of 399. He read the story, the magic bullet theory, and it was at that point he says, hey, wait a minute. They've got it all wrong. That's the bullet I found. Now, I find it a little hard to believe that he didn't become aware of any of that until 2016. I'm sorry. And I know the explanations that, and I guess it's possible, shock, you put it out of your mind. It was so traumatic. And I guess all that's possible, but not to know.
And we'd probably be remiss, too, not to mention, that a neighbor of Sam Kinney, who was driving the follow-up car a few years ago, came forward and asserted that Sam Kinney told him that they found a bullet in the car and that he put it on the stretcher and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Now, see, I got to give a shout-out, Rob, to Ted Rubenstein, our brother Ted. He brought that to my attention a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about it a little bit last week, that Sam Kinney's neighbor told, according to Ted, it was Jim Fetzer, actually. And that pretty much...
Was it?
According to Ted, it was. It was on Fetzer's show or on YouTube or talking to Fetzer or being interviewed by Fetzer. I don't know. But, I mean, Ted, he knows his shit as far as that goes. But, man, yeah, Sam Kinney, who, as Rob said, was driving the follow-up car, said he found a bullet in the car and placed it on Kennedy's stretcher. And I heard Dr. Walt Brown, he is skeptical of Landis, to say the least. And he brought that up, too, that apparently Sam Kinney had told the same story. What do you think about that, Rob?
Well, I was arguing with somebody about this, and I kind of came up with the supposition that since we didn't actually hear it from Sam Kinney himself,
there you go.
We're hearing it third hand from a neighbor, okay? So maybe in the course of Sam Kinney telling this to the neighbor, he may have said we, as in the Secret Service in general. Maybe he didn't want to name Landis specifically, but maybe he just told his neighbor, hey, we found a bullet in the limo and we put it on the stretcher. Or maybe he even took credit for doing it to cover for Landis without saying his name specifically. Who knows?
Yeah.
It could have been Kenny telling this guy, look, man, you know that bullet? Nah. Paul Landis, another agent, found that thing in Kennedy's car, and then years later, now did he say he found it or somebody else? You know, the neighbor, I mean. You know, it can even be that. It can even be
or
that.
he could just say, you know, hey, we found another bullet in Kennedy's car, you know, and it morphed into he found, we found, he found, I found, who knows, you know.
Or if you're the guy's neighbor, you're gonna say, look, man, I'm gonna let you in on something, okay? There was another bullet found in that car. Or that magic bullet that they say made all those wounds, that was found. No, we found that in the car.
Yeah.
Or that was found in the car, and they put it on the president's stretcher. That's all bullshit, Mr. Neighbor Man. You know, and then it goes from there was a bullet found to my neighbor found it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But regardless, as we're saying, if there's any kernel of truth to this story, then the magic bullet theory, the ridiculous magic bullet theory that all of the lone nutters need, it's nullified, is it not, guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if there's
Exactly.
any kernel of truth to this. No matter who actually found it.
This guy Landis was traumatized, man. I mean, I think he lasted another year on diaper duty with the Secret Service until he just said he couldn't take it anymore. I mean, he pretty much relived that day every day for years. You know, so he was definitely scarred by this event, and you know, like I said, he quit the Secret Service, I think, less than a year after this happened, and just went from, you know, working Joe jobs to being a painter, you know, this, that, and the other, you know, and just wanted to forget about it as much as possible, which is understandable. So, you know, you try to put that shit out of your mind. You don't want to think about it. You don't dwell on it. You don't research it. You just live your life and try to move on from this traumatic event until maybe mentally you're at that point where you can reflect a little better and you're more mature, and, you know, maybe you hear something that sparks your interest, and, you know, like he says, you know, the catalyst was 6 seconds in Dallas for him, you know, to actually put two and two together in his own mind and hear about all this stuff. Because, you know, us three here, you know, we pretty much live and breathe this stuff on a daily basis, and it's hard to comprehend a person who has never paid any attention to the Kennedy assassination, but they're all around us every day. As soon as you walk out of the house, you know, these people have no clue what happened.
But yeah, and they have no clue, and they're willing to argue with you, even though they have no clue.
Yeah,
they're willing to argue. And you know what, Rob, you make a good point too, because these guys, like you said, they were all traumatized by what has happened. And what do you do when you're traumatized? You want to put it out of your mind. You don't want to read books about. You're not going to read books about it. You're not going to watch TV programs about it. You're not going to get any. You just want to forget the whole freaking thing, because it was just so horrific that you just can't accept that it even happened. You know, and like I say, when you're in a state of shock, it's amazing what you do when you're in a state of shock.
Oh yeah, my grandfather, he stormed the beaches at Normandy and in World War II, and he refused to talk about any of that shit. Yeah, his whole life, even when he's in his 90s.
Yeah, because he saw guys dying in front of him. There were men dying, young men dying. And a lot of those people, kids that stormed that beach were 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. They were just been drafted. Yeah. And, you know, it's a terrible thing to see something like that.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to think about it, you know, and he was, you know, two Purple Hearts, and, you know, he saved some people's lives that day and saw a lot that didn't make it. And, you know, you can only pull little nuggets out of him, but most of the time he didn't want to talk about it at all, or, you know, even deal with it. But
yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the way my dad was about Vietnam. I don't want to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
Never did.
Yeah. And I'm sure he saw so many horrendous things even done by his own guys to those peasants in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, man.
Atrocities, war atrocities that were committed even by the Americans that he didn't even want to talk about it. He couldn't believe it.
He was proud of his service, but at the same time, he'd tell you it was all bullshit.
Yeah.
There was no reason for it, you know?
Yeah. Never should have went over there.
Yeah, pretty much. That was his thing. And, you know, a proud veteran, you know, proud Army guy, artillery guy, but he just didn't want to talk about it because it was pretty. I heard a few stories, man, but, you know, it was funny shit, you know, like a couple of funny stories, you know, like dumb shit that happened. But, you know, I'm looking forward to our resident Secret Service agent expert, Mr. Vince Palomara, is actually doing a presentation at Lancer about Paul Landis. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing what Mr. Palomara has to say. It seems like, is he possibly, what do you guys think? Have you seen any of his writing online about it? Is he giving Landis a shot, a chance, or is he again him, as they say?
I haven't read anything about it. I've seen some of the topics, and the topics sound like he doesn't believe him. But I don't know. I haven't read any of it.
Well, that ought to be interesting. A lot of new names are being added to the old Lancer thing there, Rob.
They are. Yes, yeah. It seems like every day we're getting some new presenters.
So yeah. But there we go, guys, the Paul Landis thing. So you guys are inclined to believe there's some truth to his story, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me anyways, it seems to me there's corroboration from other places, so that there was a bullet on the stretcher. And if this bullet is the CE-399 bullet, that means that it did not go through both men. And Connolly and Kennedy were hit by different bullets, which is what the FBI said, what the Secret Service said, what John Connolly said, what Nellie Connolly said, and they were all hit. And even the witness up on the overpass there, Skinny Holland, said that Connolly and Kennedy were hit by separate bullets. He saw it. So, I mean,
I hope it is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I as well. And I agree with you guys. This is the man insists that 399 is the bullet he found. You know, there you go. There you go. But, man, the mainstream media, dude, they don't want to let it go. I want to leave you guys with this. The genius that wrote this BBC story that I read from, this is a sentence in there. If he is right, Mr. Robinault said, now, here we go. Let me read the whole thing. Mr. Landis now believes the bullet that he found in the car was the one that turned up on Mr. Connolly's gurney. He believes the bullet had embedded shallowly in Mr. Kennedy's back and fallen out in the car. If he is right, Mr. Connolly and Mr. Kennedy may not have been struck by the same bullet. Like, wait, hold up, genius. What? One dude's thigh in the middle of the car and behind the other guy at the trunk. No, I don't think it's one of those, hey, you think moments, you know. Geniuses. So, Mr. Gil Jesus, bro, you have been doing some work recently on the Lee Harvey Oswald backyard photographs, have you not?
I have.
Yeah, man, we want to invite you to take a few minutes, man, and clue us in. Tell us what you've discovered, your analysis, and what your work has consisted of, man.
All right. Let me start out with a quote from Marguerite Oswald. This is her testimony to the Warren Commission. She says, if Lee is going to assassinate the president or anyone else, is he going to have photographs laying all around with the gun? No, sir. That's her quote from her testimony. Now, the official story is this, that police had searched the Payne residence Friday afternoon without a warrant, but with the consent of Ruth Payne. But when the police started taking some of her personal items, she objected and rescinded her consent. At that point, the search was over. No photographs or negatives with Oswald, showing Oswald with the rifle, were found on Friday afternoon search. A second search of the Payne residence was done on Saturday, the 23rd, because according to the Detective Richard Stovall, we didn't actually have time to stay as long as we needed to check the whole house. Now, this is nonsense, because there's no such thing as not having enough time to conduct a search. Searches are not limited by time. You search until the search is completed. You don't leave and come back the next day when evidence that might have been present on Friday had been destroyed overnight. Even if Ruth Payne had ended Friday's search, police should have immediately sought a search warrant and continued their search.
Well, hey, Gil,
Yep.
didn't Marina or Marguerite say that they destroyed one of the backyard photographs and burned it and threw it in the toilet or something?
Yeah, there was supposedly a photograph that Marina had in her shoe of Oswald in a different pose with the rifle over his head, and and she claims that they destroyed that. Now, so why weren't they charged with destroying evidence?
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Depending on whose testimony you listen to this now, this is the Saturday search. Depending on whose testimony you believe, the Dallas detectives involved in the Saturday search testified that they arrived anywhere from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. But because they were out of their jurisdiction, their search required the presence of a member of a law enforcement agency with jurisdiction. That member was Irving Police Detective John A. McCabe. The Dallas police testified that they arrived at the Payne residence accompanied by Detective McCabe of the Irving Police Department. Now, that's their story, but that's a lie, because McCabe was nowhere near the Payne residence when the Dallas police arrived. McCabe told the FBI, now this is, I've got the document, he's told the FBI that he was contacted by Dallas police detectives Gus Rose and Richard Stovall at 2:45 p.m. to accompany them to the Payne residence. Now, this is 2:45 a.m. They call the Irving police to get one of their officers there. Now, they claim that, let's say they arrived at 1:30 or even 1:45. They were there for a whole hour without the Irving officer there. You following me so far? Now, when they arrived,
sounds like the Friday searches.
Now, when they arrived, the Paynes were ready to go shopping, food shopping. They showed them where the boxes had the Oswald's possessions, and they left. And I'm thinking to myself, why the hell are they letting them leave? If I'm a police officer and I'm searching a residence, and there are people there, the residents are there, present, I'm going to make them sit on a couch in the living room. I'm going to put a police officer with them. I'm going to make sure that they don't move, because I don't want them destroying any evidence that may be hidden, and I don't want them going for any weapons that might be concealed somewhere. So this is to protect my officers and to make sure no evidence is destroyed. I'm going to keep them on that couch until the search is completed. Okay? Right. These guys let them leave and go food shopping. And I'm thinking to myself, what if they find something that implicates any of them in this case? How are they going to arrest them when they've left? This makes no sense to me at all. So I start looking into it deeper and deeper, and then I find this thing about McCabe, that they didn't notify the Irving police for 2:45. And I'm saying to myself, they've got to be there at least an hour by themselves without the Paynes and without the Irving police. Why would they do that? Because they're planning on doing something. They were planning on doing something, and they don't want anybody to see them. They don't want any witnesses. So they let the Paynes leave. They don't call the Irving cop till later. And then what do? They plant the evidence that they claim. They put it in an envelope, and then they call the Irving police. The Irving police. They let them find it. Now, again, this is my own opinion based on the evidence I'm looking at. You see, because there's no reason for them to wait to 2:45 unless they're up to something. They're doing something in that garage that they don't want anybody to see. They don't want the Irving cop to see. They don't want the Paynes to see. They let them go. You would never let them go, but they let them go because they didn't want any witnesses. And the Paynes, for some strange reason, leave the cops there. If your house is being searched, why on earth would you even let the cops be there by themselves? Wouldn't you want to be there to make sure they don't take anything of yours? But, okay, all right. So
yeah, because they cared about that on Friday, but not on Saturday.
Yeah, All of a sudden, it doesn't make any sense. Now, according to the Warren Commission's report, 2 photographs and 1 negative were found in the Payne garage during the Saturday search. But Dallas Police Detective Gus Rhodes testified that he found 2 photographs and 2 negatives. He testified that he found 1 photo and 2 negatives, and the other photograph was found by McCabe. See, McCabe found the envelope, and he picked out 1 photograph, saw it, and then he called Rose over, and Rose found the other photograph and some negatives. So what happens to the second negative? Nobody knows. This discrepancy is not the only one that connected the discovery of the photographs. Detective McCabe, excuse me, Detective McCabe told the FBI that he found an envelope, like I said, which contained the photographs, one of which was Lee Harvey Oswald standing with a rifle in his hand and a pistol visible on Oswald's right hip. That's what he said. So Detective Stovall makes no mention of any envelope, testifying only that the photographs were found in a cardboard box. But I believe they were found in an envelope, and the envelope was in the box. The commission could have cleared this up by asking Detective Rose where he found the photographs, but it failed to do so. In fact, the commission failed to call McCabe as a witness. Can you believe that? This guy finds one of the backyard photographs in the garage, and they don't even call him as a witness to give testimony regarding the discovery of the photos. They also failed to show the photos in evidence to Rose and Stovall to get them to identify it. This means that the commission never firmly established that the photos currently in evidence were found in the Payne garage.
One of many things that the commission never really established. They just decided. They just decided.
This follows in a long line of commission failures to authenticate major items currently in evidence. The rifle shells, the shells at the tip and murder scene, the Oswald's jacket, E399. Those were never identified by the persons who found them. In addition, the photos and negatives were never specifically listed, get this, on inventory sheets of Oswald's possessions recovered from the Payne garage on Saturday. They never listed them because they made a list of everything they took out of the garage. What they call an evidence list of all the things they took out of the garage on Saturday. And these photographs were never listed. Now, the cops claim that they were listed under the title of miscellaneous photographs and maps. All right? Now, this makes me laugh because you've got a suspect under arrest, okay, killing one of your officers with a handgun, and you've got the rifle, which he denies ever owning. And you find photographs of him with the alleged murder weapons, with a rifle and a handgun, and what, you give this the same level of significance as June Oswald's baby pictures,
or a map of Dallas,
downtown Dallas. I mean, what are you kidding me? If I were the officer in charge here, that would have been the first thing on my list, listed, and it would have been specifically shows suspect with a handgun on his hip and a rifle, holding a rifle in a backyard. Yeah, it would have been specific. I would have said what clothes he was dressed in. I would have made it. There would have been no doubt that those photographs were the ones that were found, plus the negatives accompanying those photographs. But they weren't listed like that. In addition, they said that they found blank copies of that. Remember that selective service card, that fake selective service card with the picture that said A. Hidell?
Yeah.
Alec J. Hidell, yeah. They said they found blank ones in it. That's not listed. That's not listed on it. They said they found an ad of the Klein Sporting Goods with the alleged murder weapon on the ad. That's not listed on there.
Yeah, and it was the wrong size rifle anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a 36-inch rifle. So that's what I'm saying. You list all of this under miscellaneous photographs and maps. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, there's so much wrong with the evidence in this case. Oh my God.
No. But this is the way they did it, Doug. This is the way they did. This is the way they convicted people. It's unbelievable that
nice, neat little bow.
Yeah. All of these crucial pieces of evidence are missing from the evidence list. I don't get it. I think what they did was they went this Friday. They did a search, and they got everything. They took I think a Russian 35 millimeter camera. They took all kinds of film. They took slides. They took a slide projector. They found all of this stuff, none of it proven Oswald was guilty of killing the president. There's nothing on either one of these lists that says that Oswald killed the president. There's nothing conclusive on any of these lists. All right, they have nothing. And they went there on Friday. I believe my own self. I believe that they found the Imperial reflex camera on Friday, which they said they never found it. They never did find it.
Yeah.
McCabe said he saw it on Saturday, but he didn't think it was evidence in the case. How can you not think that? You've got a picture of him with the rifle that you claim you found with him with the rifle and the gun, and you find a camera, any camera, and you don't think that's worth taking as evidence? Come on. But anyways, all of these things, I think they found the Imperial reflex camera on Friday. They made the pictures in the Dallas lab, the Dallas police lab. They faked the pictures. They took pictures of the fake pictures with the Imperial reflex camera so that they could have what appeared to be original photographs taken from the Imperial reflex camera. They threw the other ones out, the composites out. And so now they've got just the pictures taken with that camera. You follow me? Then on Saturday, They go back with the camera and with the fake pictures, the pictures that they faked, they plant all of that stuff on Saturday because there's no reason to go back on Saturday. There's no reason to go back. There's no reason to leave on Friday and come back on Saturday. They used that as an excuse to plant the evidence on Saturday. The second search on Saturday, I believe, was an opportunity for them to plant evidence against Oswald and let the Irving cop find it so that they could say, well, it wasn't planted by us. The other guy found it,
So, that I've heard speculation. There's a lot of people that think that the backyard photographs were made, further back to frame Oswald. You think they were manufactured that weekend, like overnight by the Dallas police? Yeah,
I think they were. And I'll tell you another reason why I think that.
Yeah.
Why? If you look at the photographs, especially 133A. 133A is the key photograph. This photograph shows a rifle that is not the 6-floor rifle. Okay, this is a rifle with bottom sling mounts.
Yes, the sling, the freaking strap is mounted wrong, dude. The Oswald rifle, the Oswald rifle. The Mannlicher Carcano found in the Texas School Book Depository, it's mounted on the side, right?
That's right. And the one in the backyard,
it's mounted on the bottom of the rifle
with a D-shaped ring. With a D-shaped ring, and it's got a rope tied to it. Okay. Now, if you take a good look at that photograph, that CE-139A, and you compare it to the photograph that was taken in 1967. They did another photograph where they tried to reproduce the shadows in that photograph.
Yeah.
They used I forget the guy's March 67. They did it on the exact same day, March 31st, that they supposedly backyard photographs were supposed to be taken. Okay, and they did this. They did this photograph with a man named John Cappell, Cappel, and he took the photographs in the backyard at the same address, 214 Neely Street in Dallas. Now, the purpose of this photography session was to recreate the shadows seen in the backyard photographs, but it did more than that. Having taken on the same date of the alleged backyard photographs of Oswald, it revealed a great difference in the status of the bush in the background. If you take a look at the bush to your right, Oswald's left, that was behind him, you'll see that the bush that in the backyard photographs is in full bloom. But the one that they took on the same date with John Cappell, that bush is almost empty.
Oh, wow.
So that backyard photograph was not taken in March of 1963. That photograph was taken later in the year, after that bush had been had bloomed.
That's quality analysis, man. Paying attention to the details.
Yeah, and so I think that this photograph was taken sometime. These photographs were taken sometime late summer, early fall. That's my guess. And if you take a look at it, it's right around the same time frame where A. Hidell makes his appearance in New Orleans, and where Klein Sporting Goods starts selling the 40-inch rifle. and where the announcement of the president is going to be coming to Dallas, and the hiring of Oswald at the Texas School Book Depository. This is all a time frame from August to mid-October 1963. That's what I think it was. I think these photographs were made then. I think this was once they got him back to Dallas at the beginning of October, it was just a matter of time. They were going to frame him for doing this. This was already in the works. This had been in the works for a while. Commission Exhibit 133A's authenticity had another problem when examined by the commission's expert. It could not be matched to the Imperial reflex camera that originally took the pictures.
Like their ballistics, right?
Yeah, the 133A could not be matched to the Imperial reflex camera because for two reasons. Number one, they did not have the negative. The negative they were never found, and it did not have what they call a shadow graph area, which would on the photograph that would connect it with the, like you said, kind of like a ballistic type of thing where the camera leaves markings on the photograph.
Yeah,
and so they didn't have the negative. And they didn't have the shadow graph information. So they could never identify that photograph, the one with the bottom sling mounts, as having been taken by that camera.
Different rifle.
Yeah. Different time of the year, it seems.
Yeah, different time of the year.
And they can't prove that it was taken from that camera. So this is all interesting.
If they can't prove it was taken from the camera, it's like the ballistics evidence with the rifle and the bullet, you know. The magic bullet. I believe his name was Bates. We've talked about that before on the show. The FBI guy, the ballistics expert for the HSCA, who testified to them that they couldn't prove, to the exclusion of all other barrels, that 399 was fired through the Texas School Book Depository barrel. Well, he says it in plain English. We cannot prove this.
When a House Select Committee tested the bullets, all of the 1963 bullets matched each other, okay? But when the House Select Committee test-fired bullets through the alleged murder weapon, the C2766 rifle, guess what? The bullets didn't match.
They didn't match the 1963 bullets.
Nope,
right.
None of them.
Right. So you got to figure, I mean, if Oswald had lived past the 24th, you know, what good is that in a court of law?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
You know, but that blew my mind. And it was the same guy, Bates, that basically told him that, you know, what you said.
Yeah.
The FBI test bullets for the Warren Commission don't match the ones that I got.
Yeah,
you know?
and so they turned around and they said, well, we believe the bullets in 63 were fired from there because the shells matched by the firing pin impression and the breech marks on the bolt face marks on the bolt. But you know what, Doug, that bolt could be changed. That bolt could have been changed, and those bullets fired in 1963 through a different rifle.
Right.
That bolt was very easy to change. All you had to do was push a button, and the bolt slid right out.
Well, let me ask you this. The rifle with the bottom-mounted sling, right? Mm-hmm. The rifle with the side-mounted sling, even though those are different lengths, right, the rifles are the bolts interchangeable?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know, but I know one thing. I know that the FBI ordered a replica rifle. I think it was Commission Exhibit 542 that they ordered with the scope, just like a replica rifle of the one they found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, and it was sent to them by Klein's. They ordered it from Klein's. Now, was that bolt interchangeable with the bolt that they found on the 6th floor? I don't know, but they should have tested it. They should have taken that rifle, that replica rifle, and tested that barrel to see if that matched the bullets in 78, because if that matched the bullets in 78, regardless of what the shell said, if the bullets fired through that barrel matched the ones in 78, then they know that those 63 bullets were fired from that rifle. But they never tested it.
Well, they had their guy. Their guy. It's like Wade said at midnight on Friday. We've got him in a neat little bow.
Yep.
All tied up.
LBJ called the Dallas police and told Fritz, "You got your man. Investigation's over."
Yep.
That's it.
After conferring with his good buddy J. Edgar, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's your man. Investigation's over.
He told him the investigation was over before Hoover told him the next morning, hey, the guy on the tapes in Mexico, it ain't the same guy.
Mm.
By that time he had already called the Dallas and said, good job, you got him.
You got him.
Shut it down,
Yep. You can't tell a 38 auto shell from a 38 special. You can't tell a white jacket from a grayish tan jacket. You can't tell a 7.65 Mauser from a 6.5 Italian carbine. But God damn it, you got the right guy on the first try.
You got the right guy. And he's not the guy in Mexico, but we're going to say he was the guy in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, what a joke.
Oh, the whole thing, what a fucking shambles. And, man, Paul Landis may be showing us that.
Let me mention another thing about these photographs. There was another photograph in 1967. George DeMorenshield, who was Oswald's CIA handler, he found the third backyard photograph in a slightly different pose. On the back of his photograph, it was written, "Hunted are a fascist, haha."
Yep.
The inscription was first written in pencil and then gone over in ink. The House Select Committee's handwriting expert, Joseph P. McNally, testified that the writing was not the handwriting of Oswald or Marina. And he said his testimony was it is
really?
Russian written, but his Russian was written by somebody who was not particularly conversant in the language or someone who was below grade school level. So this was someone with not much knowledge of the Russian language. Well, my first impression would be, well, let's see if we can get some Russian handwriting from Ruth Payne, because Ruth Payne was learning how to speak the Russian language, and since she was learning the Russian language, I would ask her for a handwriting sample if it was me. Who wrote it on the back? Who wrote that on the back? Nobody really knows.
We have her calendar, which has a lot of her handwriting on it. I wonder if anybody's ever thought to compare those two. I've read through her calendar on the John Armstrong Archives website. It's in one of those notebooks. But I wonder if anybody's looked at that to see if the handwriting on the back of that backyard photograph is anywhere close to Ruth Payne's handwriting.
I don't know.
Huh, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Roscoe White image.
Yeah.
Where do you think he got that?
1976. There was another photograph, different pose, never seen before photograph. It was in the belongings of Virginia Dees, the widow of Dallas police officer Roscoe White. And Roscoe White was not the only Dallas police officer who possessed backyard photographs. Stovall had the same exact photograph as Roscoe White. The House Select Committee recovered it from him. And so no negative, but just the photographs. Where did these photographs come from? Why aren't they listed as evidence? Why weren't they ever shown to the Warren Commission? This tells me that these pictures are all made by the Dallas cops, because why wouldn't they offer this information, these photographs to the House Select Committee? Well, the House Select Committee did see them. The Warren Commission, they were never ever. And all of these photographs, the 6 photographs that the House Select Committee examined, which were the 2 photographs and the negative in the that the Dallas police claim they found. The 2 photographs, because Stovall had a photograph of 133A and 133C. Roscoe White had a photograph of 133C. So you had 133A, 133B, the DeMorenshield photograph, and then 2 photographs that Stovall had and one that Roscoe White's widow had. All of these photographs were all examined by the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and they determined that they were all first-generation photographs, which means that they were all made by the original negative.
Yeah.
So where the hell are the negatives? Where's the negatives to A and C?
Man, those things went to a burn bag, I bet, years ago.
Oh yeah. Because when they were talking, the FBI expert was testifying to the Warren Commission about how the photographs could have been faked without him knowing. He described the process where you would fake the photograph, take a picture of it, take the negative, then you would tamper with the negative so that it wouldn't show. Then you take another photograph, take a photograph of that photograph, and then you would have the picture that he couldn't tell if it was faked or not. But he claimed he could tell if it was faked. He could tell if it was retouched. But if you retouch the negative and take a picture of the photograph, let me get this right now. If you retouch the negative, then make a photograph with that retouched negative, then take a photograph of the photograph, then it doesn't show.
Okay.
That's what he was trying to say. It's confusing even for me. I got to stop and think about it. But it's possible, and that's what he said. He said for this to be a composite, they would have had to make a picture of the background with an individual standing there, then substitute the face and retouch it, and possibly rephotograph it, and retouch that negative, make a print, that's a photograph, and then rephotograph it with this camera, which is Commission Exhibit 750, in order to have this negative, which we have identified as the camera, with the camera, and is Commission 749. So in order to do it, you had to. It was a little. He claims that it wasn't possible, but it was possible. Why would he say it wasn't possible if it was? And then there's the other thing, that even if it wasn't retouched, even if it wasn't a composite, Oswald's telling the cops that's not even my face.
Yeah.
When you take a look
Chin
at,
definitely is not his.
When you take a look at all of the photographs they claim is of Oswald, it's like 6 different Oswalds. I got them listed. It's amazing. It's like 6
man, that guy went through
these guys don't even look
lot
alike.
of changes from 18 to
3
20.
years?
What was he, 23 when he died? Is that right?
24. Yeah,
24. So from 18 to 24, man, this guy's look, his hairstyle changed like a half a dozen times.
His chin changed. The shape of his head changed. Everything changed.
He put on weight. He lost weight.
Oh, it was awful. He grew. He shrunk. It was amazing. This guy was like Gumby. You could just shape him however you wanted. It's amazing. So, and then there's the clothes he was wearing, the black clothes he was wearing in the backyard photograph. Where are those clothes? There was never any clothes in any of the searches that described the clothes he was wearing. He never had a black shirt. So where's the black shirt?
It's over at Heidell's place.
Ghost image that people have seen.
The what?
The backyard photograph that has like a ghost image where it's not really a person. It's just a.
You know what that is? That's a cutout.
Where did that come from?
That's a cutout that the Dallas police made of the D's photograph, the 133, what I call 133C photograph, the Roscoe White photograph, and it's Oswald's image, but it's his image has been removed, and it's just a white. It's just white there.
Now the DPD made that when in '63,
that's the question.
Or is that
That's the question.
Or is that possibly one of the steps?
Part of the process.
Yeah.
The point is, if they had the capability of doing things like that, they certainly had the capability of faking the photographs.
See, that's the question. Is that, like Rob said, it was that one with the cutout? What we're seeing there is something that should never have gotten out, but part of the process of making the final products.
Right.
Is that something that was cut out and prepared in order to put Oswald's face on something or a body,
Yeah, well, why else would you make something like that?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of is somebody trying to figure out how it might be done, might make one. But, that one has always blown my mind. Like, we could have an actual piece of physical evidence in this one, the one with the cutout. I'm glad you mentioned that, Rob.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like pretty much what I found about it. When the House Select Committee panel achieved its conclusion that the photographs were all original, they were less than honest. It seems that they avoided addressing certain measurements of facial features of the Oswald in the photographs that had been brought to their attention, like the earlobes, the nose, and especially the chin.
Yeah.
The Oswald in the photograph has a rounded chin, where the Oswald that was arrested by the Dallas police has a pointed chin. He has a cleft in his chin. By avoiding these measurements, the panel's data is incomplete, and as such, its conclusion is nullified. Now, like I said, I went through all of that, but Oswald said that's not even my face.
Yeah. Well, the backyard
like I said,
photographs.
I put a lot of those photographs together, and it seems to me that there were like 6 different Oswalds. And it could be. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody and say, gee, you know what? That guy looks familiar to me. You know, I've seen him somewhere before.
Yeah.
You know, and but you can't remember where you've seen him. And this is, I think, what happens with the people that claim to see Oswald in North Dakota and Wisconsin and in Timbuktu and everywhere else. I think it was just a case of mistaken identity. But all of these photographs that they put out here about Oswald, some of them, it's too much of a change. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. And I agree with you. I think there are a lot of cases of mistaken identity in these witnesses that saw Oswald in all these disparate places. For sure, I do believe that. The rifle range. I mean, you know, come on. His wife says he went to shoot 3 days before he went to shoot General Walker. He buried his rifle. You ever hear of anybody burying a rifle and then using it without cleaning it first? I mean, know. Or even what's even more ridiculous is that he reassembled that rifle in the school book depository after it was completely torn down and pulled off the shooting of the fucking century without sighting it in first. You know?
Yeah. And the so-called expert on the shooting said that it would have taken at least 10 shots to be able to scope the rifle in. Once the rifle was disassembled, you got to rescope it.
Yeah,
you got to scope it back in.
You got to sight it in. It's just like, I can use the analogy of a guitar, right? Mm-hmm. You can, like, take a guitar and take the bridge off. If it's set up, right, you pull the strings off, pull the bridge off, take the neck off, and repaint it. Right, the body, then slap everything on. Guess what? It's not ready to play. It's not going to stay in tune.
Right.
You know, you have to set it up. You have to adjust the truss rod and adjust the bridge and, you know, that kind of thing. With a rifle, same thing. If you take a rifle apart and put it back together, there's no telling where the hell that bullet's going to end up if you aim it and fire it. Because you haven't adjusted the sights. You haven't adjusted this, that. Sighted it back in. And
you know what they said? They said the rifle was so accurate that they put all of the shots in the space of a dime. The Warren Commission in their report, they put that rifle was so accurate that it put all of the shots that the FBI fired in the space of a dime. But you know what they didn't? But that was at 15 yards. That wasn't at 85 yards. At 85 yards, you couldn't hit a bull in the ass.
No.
That rifle with that scope was so inaccurate that they never hit what they aimed at. They couldn't hit anything because the rifle was inaccurate at a different amount from shot to shot.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. If the rifle is 5 inches high and 5 inches to the right, then you can adjust for that. You can just aim 5 inches lower and 5 inches to the left, and you adjust for that. But if the rifle is 2 inches high and 3 inches to the right on the first shot, then 4 inches high and 1 inch to the right on the second shot, and then 5 inches high and 1 inch to the left on the next shot, how the hell are you going to adjust for that? You can't. You never know where it's going to hit.
On top of the fact that you're shooting at a moving target?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's not painted like a target. I mean, how are you even going to see where the bullet, your first shot lands?
Right.
And react that fast, and then see where your second shot hits, and then react again for that. I mean, you're not shooting at a black and white target with rings around it, you know.
I think Kennedy was shot from the front. I really do believe that. I really believe that the shots were very, very close. I wouldn't rule out. I know people have said that before it's been debunked, but I would not rule out the storm drains as a source of where those shots came from. The car was coming towards them, and they were undercover. They wouldn't get hit. They wouldn't have to worry about stray bullets. And even some of the witnesses said that they saw smoke and they saw shots coming from the storm drains. They said the sewer. And right where Kennedy gets hit in the head, there's storm drains on both sides of the car. And so I wouldn't rule it out. I certainly wouldn't rule it out because of the evidence I've seen. But, killing you know how hard it is to kill the president with a rifle at distance at 240 feet? It's very difficult. I don't care what they say about that scope. You couldn't hit anything with that rifle. That rifle was a piece of crap.
Not with that one, man, but a Johnson 30-06 on a bipod from a rooftop with that Bushnell scope that Hemming had put on it, man, that thing.
And
you could reach out and touch it right on the earlobe.
You know what they said about that Mauser? It was an Argentine rifle. That's one of the reports, that it was an Argentine rifle they took out of that school book depository. I'm not saying they didn't take the Mannlicher Carcano.
Yeah.
I believe they found another rifle in that building.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm talking about the Johnson 30-06 that came up missing. Man, that thing had a bipod, and was it a 40-power Bushnell scope, Rob?
I think it was 30 power.
30 power, but still, man, in Dealey Plaza, that rifle, by all accounts, was a slick machine, and I could see that, man, from a distance, from the top of a roof.
You want to see, Doug? You want to see a accurate rifle? The 7.65 Argentine Mauser.
Pretty good rifle.
Go on YouTube and take a look at the 7.65 Argentine Mauser. And see how accurate that baby is. 300 yards, he's hitting the freaking gong at 300 yards. That's an accurate rifle.
And I'm like you, though. I do believe, whether it was that one or not, I do believe they found another rifle in the depository.
See, that's what's great
Jim
about
Garrison.
That's what
wasn't Jim Garrison showing and I've never seen the photograph, but I've heard the lore that he was showing a photograph around during his investigation of the police bringing a rifle down down a fire escape of the depository. And I believe he claimed that was a Mauser. You guys familiar with that?
Could be. I think somebody had said that they found a British 303 Enfield. 303 on the roof. I thought that's what I had read somewhere. But you know what? You hear so many different things that it's hard to, and without corroboration, it's kind of hard to determine what's the truth and what isn't, because the official version is definitely bullshit, and it's really hard because there's just so many different stories that you hear, and it's hard to determine.
That's what we do here, man. We try to wade through them,
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to wade through. It really is. But you know what? And I really do believe that in the end the truth will come out. It'll have to. There's just more to me. And my website is mostly on an examination of the case against Oswald. And to me, there's more than a reasonable doubt that he killed anybody. And he said it himself. He said, I didn't kill anybody. I got nothing against anybody. I've not committed any acts of violence. Any dispatches you people have been given, I emphatically deny these charges. And I present this as evidence of the guy's innocence. And so the idiots say, well, just because he said he was innocent doesn't mean he's innocent. Well, that doesn't automatically make him guilty, does it? I mean, what would you do if you had been wrongly charged with killing the president of the United States? How would you react?
I couldn't even tell you.
Would you react like him? Yeah, I would. I would be flipping out.
Oh,
are you
flipping out?
Me?
Yeah,
this is bullshit.
I definitely wouldn't be calm.
This whole case is bullshit. Yeah,
dude
exactly, and that's what he's saying. And
dude was way calmer than me. I would be.
They're not allowing me a lawyer. I've been protesting that I wasn't allowed a lawyer. Under Texas law, they were required to provide him with a lawyer the minute they arraigned him for Tippett's murder at 7:00 on Friday.
That goes back to the way Henry Wade did business too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And so then they turn around. The cops that are at the arraignment go before the Warren Commission. The Warren Commission says, well, did he say anything during the arraignment? And the judge says he might have said something, but I don't remember what it was. The cops, all of a sudden, the cops all have amnesia. They can't remember what he said. Yeah, he might have said something, but I wasn't listening. I didn't hear it. I didn't, not that I know of. You know, then, and you know how the cops are lying because one cop's turning around and says he never asked for a lawyer. And the other cop says he was offered a lawyer, but he refused it. Well, which one is it? You know, that's how you can tell when they're lying.
Yeah.
My dad once told me when I was a young kid, he said, you know, the good thing about the truth is, because he caught me in a lie one time. He says, you know what? It's a good thing about the truth. You never have to remember what you said.
Damn right. It's a lot less to remember.
Yeah, I never forgot that for the rest of my life. And I must have been about, I don't know, 7 years old or something at the time, but I never forgot that. And it's true. And you know when when they're telling you the truth and when they're lying is because if their stories match, chances are they're the truth. But if they're telling you different stories, something's gone wrong here.
See, that's a big thing with me, man, and I know Rob's the same way. If the chances are, if someone's story changes over and over and over and over again, chances are it's bullshit. You know.
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
From Madeline Brown to Antonio Veciana, it's a red flag when your shit changes over and over and over and over again. You know. 100%. Well, guys, listen, we are up against a break. Y'all want to, we need to take a promo break. Gil, it's fantastic work on the photos, brother. Fantastic.
Thanks. Thanks.
Guys, we will be back right here on Quick Hits right after this.
Big Bad Bob here with you for Silk City Hot Sauces. Why Silk City? Because this hot sauce comes to you directly from Patterson, New Jersey, also known as Silk City. These hot sauces are 100% natural, gluten-free, vegan, contain no chemicals, fillers, dyes, or junk. Everything is packed into recyclable glass containers because glass doesn't leach weird flavors into the product. All other hot sauces are sourced in small batches from locally bought fresh peppers. It's all about the pepper, people. I'm telling you. Your boy, Big Bad Bob, loves his food like he loves his women. Hot and spicy, but not so hot you can't eat them. So, if you love yourself some sauce and you're tired of trying to transform your bland meat into something edible, with the tip of a jar, you will transform your life forever. Head over to silkcityhotsauce.com, place an order, and upon checkout, enter the code GUNMAN, that's GUNMAN, for 20% off of your entire order. You won't regret it. Thank me later. Peace.
November 19th of this year in Dallas, Texas at the fantastic Lorenzo Hotel in downtown Dallas. This year's conference promises, as always, to be an informative and enlightening one, not to mention enjoyable. The conference itself is over 4 months away, guys, and already the announced list of speakers and presenters is amazing. Parenthetically, it includes 4 past guests of the Dallas action, and believe it or not, 1 Drop D podcast production co-host. Oh, yeah. Now, keep in mind, this list is incomplete, as more speakers and presenters will be announced between now and November, but already, guys, the stellar list of those presenting reads as follows. Of course, Larry Hancock, the author of, among other books, Someone Would Have Talked and Tipping Point. Bill, and we're back. Quick Hits number 48, a JFK Assassination Research News and Notes podcast with Rob Clark and myself, Doug Campbell, and our very special guest, the learned, the cool, Mr. Gil Jesus. Are you having a good time so far, Mr. Gil?
Oh, yeah. I'm having a lot of fun.
All right. That's what we're here for. Informative and a little bit entertaining. And speaking of entertaining, Rob, what you got for us now?
Yeah. Speaking of getting a little bit more outrageous, funny, and entertaining, we got the email segment.
Emails.
Oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait.
emails on Quick Hits. quickhitsjfk@gmail.com.
Let me put my hand down here in my bag and feel around a little bit. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We got quite a few today, Doug. Wow.
Well, yeah, you told me. You're like, man, I'm not even, I got so many emails, I'm not even bringing a topic, because in your email segment, there will be contained within many topics, you said. So
many topics.
Many topics. Well, I'm ready, man. I'm ensconced. What about you, Mr. Gil?
Oh, yeah, we're ready.
All right. First up, we got an email from one of our favorites, Gil, and that's Tim the Eugenicist Sweatpants.
Yeah. We like this guy.
It says, hey, Bobby and Sir Douglas, I have a new book coming out. In a change of pace, I'm not the author on this one. I am the editor. It was written by my dear friend Glenn Titanic and called What They Really Meant, Deconstructing Famous Statements from History. That's an allusion, Gil, to Leno Sanik trying to put words in Oliver Stone's mouth from our last show. What he meant to say was...
Yeah, he didn't say what he said. What he said was...
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear somebody's interpretation of what somebody else said.
Well,
yeah, especially when it...
That should be a bestseller, by the way.
All right, continuing here, he says, it's a fascinating read, and in it, Glenn dissects famous words and using his psychological and mind-reading powers, tells us what the originators actually meant to say. Hold on to your hats. You'll be shocked at what you read. Here are a few examples of the truth as Glenn gives it to us. Number one, the quote, Houston, the eagle has landed. He said what they were actually saying was, Houston, we are hovering over the moon set in this here hangar. Next up, Churchill's, we shall fight them on the beaches. Was in fact, we'll wait until they get off the sand, climb the cliffs, march 50 miles inland, and then think about what we'll do. And of course, Jim Garrison's famous, back and to the left, back and to the left, back and to the left. Turns out to have really been, sort of forward and to the right. You can pre-order the book now on Amazon. It's in the fantasy section. He says, I have to run now. I have a new girlfriend. Oh, wow. And I'm taking her on a first-class double dinner date with Glenn and partner to celebrate the publication. And McDonald's closes at 10 p.m. He says, Barb is great, by the way. She's really helping me with my exercise and weight loss program. She really motivates me and won't let me slack. If I give in to the temptation of several cheeseburgers, she'll immediately take me in hand and lick me into shape. Yes, Ooh. As I'm sure you know, it's great to have somebody who will hold your hand, who will hold your end up when you're flagging. Anyway, I'm a bit anxious because the last time we tried an event like this with Glenn, he couldn't get a date. So instead, he brought along his inflatable Fletcher Prouty doll.
Inflatable Fletcher Prouty doll.
Yes. You can imagine our embarrassment when he blew up the inflatable Fletch. Hey, Doug. Guess where the inflator was for inflatable Fletch?
That was creepy as hell.
But the speed at which he went from deflated and flaccid to erect in his seat was a testament to Glenn's lung power. Sincerely, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh boy. See, Gil, we got these crazy ass listeners.
Yeah, I mean, where did they get this stuff from?
I don't know.
They're creative.
They are.
Yeah.
They take little pieces of what we say and turn it into this crazy thing. I love it. All right, next up, we have an email from Hugh Anusworth.
Hugh Janusworth, yes.
Hugh Anusworth.
Yeah, wasn't he a reporter?
Yeah, that was Hugh Ainsworth.
Oh, okay.
This is another one of our
Hugh
listeners.
Anus.
Oh, okay.
Hugh Anusworth.
All right.
He's more of a street level guy.
Yeah, more of an asshole.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
I get it.
All right. Good day, gentlemen. The JFK assassinations is a topic of never-ending interest and fascination to many of us. As we know, people can have fervent differing views on the subject and invest a large amount of their time in reading and research. At the same time, polls show a consistent majority who believe that there was, in fact, a conspiracy.
Yep.
I wonder, though, if many people in the general population really care about finding the truth. Despite such provocative statements like those from RFK Jr. recently, the whole subject doesn't seem to gain much traction with the general audience. For this reason, I doubt we'll ever find the truth, or will it ever matter? What do you think? Are people in general really interested? And if not, why do you think that is? Gil, you want to take that one?
I think people are interested. I think there are still some people that are interested because you yourself know that you get response from your program. I get emails all the time. Most of them want me to allow comments on my videos, which I'm not about to do. And you got your comments. You got your comments. That's fine. I don't care about your comments. All I care about is evidence. But I think there's a general interest on it because, especially today with the government telling so many lies to the people, I think that people want to know the truth. People have a hunger for the truth. What did that guy say in the movie JFK? He says people are suckers for the truth. He's telling the Garrison character. That was I think that was supposed to be Prouty, Mr. X. He says people are suckers for the truth, and the truth is on your side. And so I think people want to know the truth. I think some people don't want to know the truth, and those are the ones that you'll never convince. But there are some people out there, don't forget, this is a whole new generation of people who never knew JFK, never lived during those years. You know, I remember as a young kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the president saying, I remember watching TV, and he's saying that night, it'll be the policy of this country to consider any missile fired by Cuba against any nation in this hemisphere as a Soviet attack on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response on the Soviet Union. And I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at my mother saying, this is the end. Even I, at a young age, I'm saying to myself, this is it. I mean, if they launch any of those missiles, it's a nuclear war. And so people don't know that kind of fear. People have never been under that kind. We have a whole generation of people who've never been under that kind of a threat before. And so they need to know the truth. I think they want to know the truth. They can say no conspiracy existed, but hey, there was a conspiracy against Lincoln. I mean, yep. Kennedy was removed because the deep state wanted him out of office, and they had Johnson waiting in the wings. That was it. That's what I believe. You want to know who killed JFK? America killed JFK. And in the best way I can describe it, America killed JFK. All of the institutions of America teamed up, and it was just too much for him. There's no way he could turn America into a different direction, an America of peace and stuff. This is a major war machine that we have in this country. It has been for a long time. When I was a kid, my mother said to me, I said, why do we go to war? And she said, because it's good for the economy. And that's it. Kennedy wanted to take us in a different direction. And the CIA, I believe the CIA was the one that coordinated the whole thing. And they coordinated it with their pals in Dallas to take him out. But I think people want.
JFK
I think
was
people want to know.
Charismatic and likable and funny and relatable.
And
he
what?
Came across to the American people so well that I mean, dude, he could have banged Marilyn Monroe on national television and nobody would have cared.
No.
You know what I mean? So they couldn't
No.
character assassinate this guy.
No.
They had to actually assassinate this guy.
No.
You know what I mean?
And the thing is, he had that kind of personality. He had that magnetism where he could draw people to him. You know what I mean? He smiled.
Yeah.
He went into the crowds. He wasn't afraid. he was time and time again. He was warned, don't go to Dallas. It's too dangerous. You know, don't go to Dallas. People sent him letters. People went to Washington to tell him, don't go to Dallas. They're going to kill you if you go down there. And, you know, his thing was, look, I'm the president of the whole country. I can't be afraid to go anywhere. I've got, you know, and plus he had a message. He wanted to tell the people down there, don't listen to these right-wing extremists, these nutcases who think that, you know, this communism, that we're poisoning the water and everything else. Don't believe this bullshit, you know.
You know, Kennedy, like Eisenhower was who Eisenhower was. He was General Eisenhower, right? I don't think he was the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs, the military necessarily had to intimidate him, you know, or scare him into doing what they wanted. But Kennedy was different in that he was a Navy vet, but he wasn't, he wasn't necessarily establishment, Washington establishment, national security establishment. And I think they thought with his youth, with his inexperience, they could bully him. They could
push him around, exactly.
Right. But he wasn't scared of them.
No.
And he wasn't going to be bullied.
No.
And he let them know, without a doubt in April of 1961.
Yep.
And he was not going to be bullied into doing whatever the fuck they wanted.
Nope.
You know, he was a threat also because I think he wasn't scared of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. And
no fear. And I think between him and his brother, he had somebody to bounce ideas off of. And these guys are both, you know, Ivy League educated. They're smart. They're thoughtful. And, you know, they had a very good, very strong family bond.
And they were anti-corruption too. They wanted to clean up the government. They tried to clean up the labor unions during the Kafava meetings, and they wanted to clean up the government too. They were going after Lyndon Johnson's boy there, and right, and so they wanted to clean things up. They wanted to make peace with the Russians. These are all things that. You didn't do things like this. You didn't do that. You didn't make speeches that we need to reconsider our own attitude towards the Russians. The American foreign policy at the end of World War II was always a policy of containment, stop communism from spreading anywhere in the world. That was it, regardless of the cost. Kennedy was kind of like, well, you know what? If the people want to vote for communist government, let them have the communist government as long as they can vote it back to Democrat later. Who cares? He was dealing with Tito in Yugoslavia. He was dealing with other communists. He tried to save Patrice Lumumba from being assassinated, but it was too late. The CIA had already beaten him to the punch. But he wasn't. He was already considering reconsideration on the American position in Cuba. He sent feelers out to Castro to see how he thought about reconciliation. You didn't do things like this as president of the United States. These were acts of treason that these people saw as acts of treason. And so when it came time, we got to get rid of this guy. Think about it. If you had that kind of a basis, a foundation of thinking things like that people were meeting around the country discussing how are we going to kill the president of the United States? How are we going to kill him? Joseph Miltier in his time, he knew how they were going to do it. They're going to kill him from an office building with a high-powered rifle.
Yeah, man, that guy.
And he even says it's in the works. So get that. So the FBI goes and questions him. All right, they've got him on recording. They have a recording of him on tape saying these things. He denies saying all of it. Right then and there. Right then and there, they should have turned around and said, you know what, pal? You're under arrest. I hope you don't have nothing to do for the next 5 years because you're going to federal prison for lying to a federal agent making false statements to a federal agent. They should have arrested him right on the spot. But you know what they did? Oh, you weren't there? You weren't in Dallas? Oh, you didn't have said that? Okay, fine. They let him go.
Yeah,
That's
basically said
bullshit.
He said, "Oh, I was just running my mouth off bullshitting."
Yeah,
you know,
that's bullshit.
Man, you know what, Gil, and me and Rob talked about this years ago, man. But there was a hard right political convention, the first weekend of November in Indianapolis it was the Constitution Party's convention, and I've often thought that Miltier got his information there because he was there, and so was Edwin Walker, General Walker, and so was Guy Bannister, and so was Leander Perez, you know, and so were some Cuban exiles, you know. But I've often thought, because it was like 7-8 days later, I think the Somerset tape was made on the 7th or 8th, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Where Miltier spills this information. So he's only been back from that convention where Perez and Bannister and Walker were all at the same time. So I've always, in the back of my mind, wondered, man, is that where he got that information? Was, the week before just looking at who all was there,
It could very well be, because there was a woman who attended some kind of a meeting, a student meeting at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and it was in the first week of November, and she understood Spanish. She was Cuban, I guess, a Cuban American, and she heard these two Cuban students overheard them talking, or overheard a Cuban student talking on the phone to someone else, and he's telling them that Kennedy's going to be assassinated. Publishing building, a building that houses school publishing office in Dallas. Now, she claims that she reported this to the FBI in New York, because her parents lived in New York. So when she got home, she called the FBI office. FBI had no record of it. Okay, but here's the information that they finally interviewed her later after the assassination. She claimed that she had reported this the first week of November to the FBI in New York, and they said no, they didn't have any record of it. She just said the name of the person she talked to, and her mother even backed up that, yeah, she made the phone call, and I was right there when she made the phone call. But the FBI never had, and nobody ever investigated. Why didn't the FBI have this information? You've got two witnesses saying that the phone call was made. Why? What happened to that information? and
Dallas, not only that, but the FBI, of course, didn't do anything with that information. They
didn't do anything with anything they received. They didn't do anything. They didn't forward anything from Miltier's confession tape to the Secret Service. Nope,
either.
Never did. Nope, never did.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, they wanted it to. Hoover wanted it to happen. That's why.
Well, yeah.
Hoover squashed everything. Hoover wanted it to happen. This is what I mean is, Hoover should have been charged with accessory before the fact, because, but there was no way he was going to do that. Him and Johnson were close. These guys, they let the people who were really responsible for this get away with it because it saved their jobs. Are you going to bite the hand that fed you? Are you going to bite the hand that gave you the presidency, the one thing you always wanted? Are you going to bite the hand that saved your job as director of the FBI? Of course not. They're not going to do anything about it because they benefited from it. So, but that's what happened. Was this Elizabeth Cole claimed that she had heard this, and it was, you could almost say it was the Texas School Book Depository, because that building housed book publishing companies. That it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be. There was shots were going to be fired from a book publishing building in Dallas. I mean, it's just it's so sad, because once they started getting threats about Kennedy, he never should have been. They never should have let him ride in an open car in that town. Never. That never should have happened. And if he was going to go into Dallas, it should have been they should have helicoptered him in, just like they did in Miami. They should have helicoptered him in. They never ever should have allowed him to ride.
They should have never done a motorcade through the middle of town.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Just put him in the car and take him to the trademark.
And then at Love Field, they
if you want to see him, go pay your fee and
Yeah, at the left field, they
Buy
tell
your plate and go
the
see 'em.
motorcycle escorts, they change them. Instead of having 4 on each side of the car, they reduce them to 2 and move them back to the rear quarter. They tell them, we don't want you going past the rear wheels of the car. And then they turn around and they tell the motorcycle officers, if anything happens, you're to maintain your position regardless of what happens. That's exactly what they were told. Now they take the
Marion
general.
Baker didn't listen very well.
They take the general out of the front seat of the car to get him out of the line of fire. They tell General Admiral Berkeley that he's got to ride further back. They do away with what they usually have is a flatbed truck in front of the president's limousine to film the motorcade. And all of those news people and those cameras and stuff, they moved them back to convertibles further back in the motorcade so that they don't get to see anything. They can't film anything. They can't take any pictures, and they're not around the president when he's slaughtered. And all of these things, that the last-minute changes are being done at Love Field. And Berkeley, he protested, but it wasn't any good. They claim, oh, yeah, you can't ride in the car behind the president's backup car because Johnson and his group jumped in there. It's just too much. You know what I mean? There's just too much information. There's just too many things that happen to say that this is all a coincidence. That's bullshit. This was planned. They took Kennedy, they brought him into an ambush, they killed him, and they did the same freaking thing to Oswald 2 days later. Period. That's it.
Yep. All right. And then Hugh goes on to say, to give a shout out to my dear friend and faithful listener to your show, James Flanagan. So, James, what's up, James, for listening? And he says, who I know is always kind enough to value any input from myself and my colleague, Jones Mellons. Best wishes, Hugh Amesworth.
Thank you, Hugh. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yes, thank you, Hugh. That's who we haven't heard from Jones Mellons in a long time, Doug. My God.
No, we have not. Maybe I don't know, man.
Maybe she needs to unleash him again and let him out of the old brawl and send us an email next month, Joan.
Maybe she's floating the river.
Maybe.
Maybe she's out of season.
She might be.
Those melons might be out of season. You never know.
All right. Next up, we have one from who? George Abbott. I think this one's legit. We will see.
Gil, we're to the point now where we legitimately don't know until we get finished with the email.
Okay. This says, hello from London. I'm a big fan of your work. After discovering your podcast, I binged your content over the process of 1 month and have learned and laughed a lot. Your show is a great depository, pun intended, of research, current thinking, and debate on the subject. The assignation, I think he's supposed to say assassination, is fascinating to me as for every detail which is perfectly planned to avoid too many dots being joined together by future researchers and law enforcement. There are just enough iffy details which show that this was not a lone nut acting alone, but a nearly perfectly executed assassination. Again, I think it's George, I love you, but you got to learn how to spell assassination, bro. It's not that hard. It's ass-I-nation.
Ass-I-nation. I have never thought of it that way.
Ignation. For example, the paperwork for the gun, which has dates which are out of order and suggest fabrication, which is perfectly paired with a clear chain of custody between Oswald, the Heidel alias Fair Play for Cuba Committee, and the rifle. I thought you might be interested in hearing some of my thoughts, on some of the smaller details of the case, which have really fleshed out the conspiracy for me. The key difference between a lone nut and a conspiracy is that a lone nut is likely to hand themselves into law enforcement. Well, I don't know about that. And believe they are acting under some greater good. I don't know about that either. Take Andres Breivik, who was behind the Norwegian mass shooting a decade ago. A conspiracy, on the other hand, has a beginning, middle, and end, with each part as important as the others. The escape route has always bothered me, as this was just an important part of the plan as the shooting itself. Eyewitness and ear witness testimony supports some kind of shot being fired from or near the schoolbook depository. If, as I strongly suspect, Oswald never handled a gun that day, then how did the shooters exit the schoolbook depository without being seen? Let's pause right there, because there's a lot to unpack in this email. Gil, what do you think about if there was another shooter in the schoolbook depository, how they got out so quick? What do you think about that?
Well, there were witnesses who claimed they seen men running out the back entrance of the schoolbook depository. I think, I don't know if it was James Worrell who said that.
Yeah, he's one of them.
And there were
Richard Randolph Carr.
Richard Randolph Carr, I think he was one. See if I can find anybody
There's a
else.
car full of ladies over there too on Houston Street. Said they saw somebody come out the back as well.
Yeah, there were a few people who said they saw people running out the back entrance. The police.
But how did they get down from the 6th floor?
Well,
out of the building without being seen?
Well, they may have been seen. And if you take a look at Marion Baker, you take a look at his original deposition, his affidavit. He said that he encountered someone on the 3rd or 4th floor, and he was wearing a brown jacket, a tan jacket. Now,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was wearing a tan jacket, and if you read some of the witnesses, what they described the men they saw in the window, at least one of them said the guy had a tan jacket. So it could very well be that they got out of the building or barely got out of the building. And he said that with the guy with the tan jacket, that what's his name, Roy Truly, vouched for him. Huh. So now, if this is one of the shooters, and Roy Truly is vouching for him as being an employee, and he isn't an employee, and he's up there shooting from the 6th floor, and he gets caught on the 3rd or 4th floor by the cops, and Truly vouches for him, that means Truly's involved in this. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Because how else can he get away unless Roy Truly vouches for him? So, and Truly was anti-Kennedy anyways. According to William Manchester in his book, The Death of a President, Truly didn't like Kennedy. He felt he was one of these people who Kennedy wanted the races to mix, and he wasn't in favor of that. Yeah. He didn't like
Truly was definitely a racist as well.
Yeah,
I've seen some of his quotes that'll make you cringe. My God.
Some of his testimony too, in regard to the black employees, and.
Yeah, man, he was a racist POS, no doubt.
Yeah, and the whole building was racist because the black workers had to have their lunch in the Domino room. They weren't allowed the 2nd floor lunchroom.
Well, it was Texas in 1963, man.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Texas and Southern Justice. Yeah, 1963. And that's why they say Oswald had his lunch in the 2nd floor lunchroom. Who says that? Who said that? Who said Oswald had his lunch in the 2nd floor lunchroom? If anything, a Marxist would want to sit in the Domino room and have his lunch with the downtrodden, I would think. But anyways, that's just an opinion.
Yeah. But
I mean, there were people that didn't belong there that were seen in the building, apparently, and so yeah, I mean, they were seen leaving the building and such. And the thing is, even if the cops had caught him in the building, Truly would have vouched for them. So all they needed was his okay, and they were out free.
All right, he goes on to say here, based on testimony, they must have been on the 6th or 7th floor. or the roof and exited via the back of the building, as the front entrance was far too crowded with law enforcement and other witnesses. But until recently, I was not aware of any eyewitnesses which would support a potential conspirator's exit from the rear of the building, which we just talked about as well. Some people did see somebody leaving from the rear of the building. However, testimony about the gray Plymouth on the street behind the schoolbook depository on North Houston, and even a possible sighting of Tippett, is convincing enough for me that an escape plan for the shooter did exist, complete with a rifle. This could be a potential getaway driver, which would allow a fast exit from the scene, not using roads congested with post-assassination traffic holdups. Unpicking the chain of custody of key pieces of evidence, which we've talked about here as well today, and the scope for potential tampering of evidence, which we've also talked about here today, which places Oswald with the rifle in the building, is an important part of building the case for. I think it was Malcolm who said a crowbar was found on one of the windowsills on the 6th floor. Actually, it was a hammer, leading to the possibility the gun was planted after this event. I was amazed to hear this, but perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised given all the other evidence around the rifle that is weak. This adds to the mountain of physical evidence which lone nuts use in support of their position, which has a poor chain of custody and is not as straightforward as it seems. The question of why the shooter in the schoolbook depository did not shoot on South Houston Street, which is objectively an easier shot, has always bothered me. A lot of researchers bring that up. But actually, and this not comes from experience or anything, but there was a video game put out a couple years ago. It was a computer game that allows you to recreate the shooting in Dealey Plaza. And the game starts when the limo turns onto Houston Street. And you're up in the 6th floor window, and you got the rifle right there. Okay? It's actually pretty damn hard to track a moving target coming at you. It's actually harder because you have to keep trying to catch it unless you go ahead of it.
Well, you kind of want to back up, actually, I would think.
Yeah.
Instinct that's coming at
car
you.
Moving away from you is an easier target because you're raising up. You're not lowering your rifle down.
And it seems like your field of
from
vision,
doing it that way.
Your field of vision grows as it's moving away from you versus shrinks as it's moving toward you. So, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Not
totally.
to mention you got to thread a pretty close needle, or you're going to take Connolly's head off. You know what I mean? Like you got to be pretty dead on to hit Kennedy. Because you're shooting over top of the car, over top of the passenger, over top of Connolly to get to JFK. And there's a very small window as you're tracking them down, moving down Houston Street toward the depository. It's just a very hard rifle track. I'll say that. And once he's moving away from you on Elm Street, he's your primary. You have him from behind. You don't have to go through anybody else. You're up high, so you're over top of everybody else. But the trajectory is there that's who you want to kill. You have the greatest chance of success doing it that way. At least it was easier for me, playing this recreated game. But back to the email. On your show, you suggested that the limo seating plan wouldn't have been known ahead of time. So seeing the Texas governor sitting in front of JFK, which given the angle of the shooter from the schoolbook depository and the quality of the rifle would be relatively high risk shot, which I just said. Yeah. Because you have a very, narrow threading the needle type situation if you're aiming for JFK behind Connolly and they're moving towards you. The use of radios or walkie-talkies on that day is something which is bothering me. Pictures of the dark-complected man and umbrella man certainly seem to suggest a radio was being used by the dark-complected man. But how freely available would those have been in 1963? Would they have been expensive or need training to be used? It's details like this which suggest the involvement of people with military training or connections which only go to support the idea of a high-level conspiracy.
Not necessarily.
I believe Jim Garrison. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you got to remember, and I was telling somebody this the other day, you know, and back to his point about, or maybe it was the previous emailer, I can't remember, about interest, you know, and general public interest. There have been more than once, twice, maybe 3 times in the last month, people have asked me about what podcast I do, and they get, oh, well, what do you think happened? It does seem like I'm running into people who are interested in it more, you know, not on the internet, like in person, but I was telling them, I'm of the opinion that the operation came out of anti-Castro operations, anti-Castro paramilitary activity. And you got to remember, these Cuban exile guys, there's a bunch of them. They were recruited, right? They went to U.S. Army Ranger School, right? And then when they got out of Ranger School, they went to SEAL School.
Yep.
Both. These were the baddest of the bad motherfuckers, and they were off the books. You know? Oh, well, it had to be
stuff like walkie-talkies wouldn't have been
nothing
totally crazy. They might have been big and bulky back then, but they certainly worked.
These guys,
like, certainly had them.
Like, who, you know, I think Dark Complected Man was Felipe Vidal Santiago. Whether or not that was him with that radio in Dealey Plaza, whoever that was very familiar with using them. And we already know about the amount of money and equipment, much less training, went into these anti-Castro operations. So getting their hands on these radios probably wasn't a big deal either. You know?
Right.
But, yeah, you got to think about that.
Or they probably, a lot of them probably already had them from, you know, running these raids into Cuba, you know, post the Bay of Pigs. You know, you want to be able to communicate with other people on other boats. You know, walkie-talkies are ideal. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like everybody had cell phones back then, you know?
Yeah, I did Santiago telling Hargraves, make sure everybody's got their radios. There you go. Right? Easy.
Yeah. All right, he goes on to say, I believe Jim Garrison may have mentioned they were used during the day in an interview pre-trial, but what is there any strong evidence of that? Which we just addressed. So testimony, not sure from whom, suggests Oswald was on the knoll after the shots and ran into a getaway car.
Roger Craig.
I believe he's talking about Roger Craig here, not actually the grassy knoll as we think of it, but more right beside the school book depository, you know, where the grass starts. And he says, if he was on the steps of the school depository as the shooting was happening, if he was prayer man, he must have had some foreknowledge of a plan to get out of such an incriminating situation. And that's assuming that he was witting to what the hell was going on.
I think
so he must have ran. Yeah.
I think when the shots went off, he went, oh, shit. And he knew immediately who did it. I truly believe that. He knew who set him up. You know, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, shit, it had to have been, you know, fill in the blank. I do think he went to his grave with...
And like Bart says, okay, so if this guy on the steps, the guy in the fuzzy picture, if that is Oswald on the front steps, as Bart says, you know, alleges that he is, you know, Bart also alleges that the second floor lunchroom encounter never happened and is totally fabricated bullshit. Okay? So we really don't know what Oswald's movements were immediately after the shots. You know, if he was prayer man, what did he do? Who knows? If the second floor lunchroom encounter is legit, then what happens after that? Nobody knows. And with all the photos and film being taken in Dealey Plaza and around that depository that day, that you do not catch Oswald on any of these photos or films leaving the building, walking down the street, or anything like that, nobody really knows when he left or how he left. the building. So I don't think you can just discredit Roger Craig's version of events. And you can't really put a whole lot of faith in the whole bus ride / taxi ride home either. So I don't know where you fall on this, Gil.
Well, I don't believe he was ever in the bus or the taxi because it doesn't make
there
sense.
You go.
I don't believe that he was in either one because nobody identified him as being in the bus. The only one who identified him was the taxi driver.
Well, Bledsoe did, but
well, yeah, but she had a stroke and she didn't. She couldn't tell. She couldn't tell a pickle from a banana, and she owed him money. She said his face was distorted and everything. How do you identify someone if their face is distorted? Her cognitive ability was not too good. She had a couple of strokes, and nobody else on the bus said it was Oswald. Supposedly he had a bus pass on him that had been punched by Cecil McWaters, but the Dallas police
that could have been fabricated later. Yeah.
Dallas police had access to his ticket book, so what makes you think that they didn't do it themselves? And plus, McWaters said when the police approached him at 6:30 at night, they stopped him in front of the police station as he was going by in his bus, and they said, "Oh, you gave out a transfer over at such and such street, Irving Street, I think it was, or something like that." And there's no way on. How would the cops know that? How could the cops possibly know that the streets are not listed on the bus transfer? So they couldn't possibly know where he gave the ticket out, the bus transfer out at. So I think it was all a bunch of baloney that there. And as far as McWaters, as far as William Whaley goes, the taxi driver, he testified that Oswald offered to give the taxi to another woman who had gotten to the taxi the same time as he did. He offered to give it to her. And she said, no, she'll get another one. Why, here's a guy who killed the president and he's in a big hurry to get out of the city and he's offering a taxi to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then he takes the taxi and he goes, 4 or 5 blocks beyond his rooming house and turns around and walks back. And then Whaley says he didn't walk in the direction of the rooming house. He walked the opposite way. So that's not Oswald. Whoever his passenger was, it wasn't Oswald. Because why would you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Why would you walk south when your apartment is north? So I don't believe he was in Whaley's cab either. I think Whaley picked up a passenger, but it wasn't Oswald. He went to the cops and told them the next day that he thought it was Oswald, but it wasn't. Then he's got Oswald wearing both jackets. They show him which jacket was he wearing when he got in your cab. And he's like, he's wearing both of them, one on top of the other. So I mean, it's just his testimony was ridiculous. It obviously wasn't Oswald that he had picked up. And so, how did Oswald get out of there? Well, where did he go? Who knows? I mean, you had Roger Craig said he got in a station wagon driven by a dark-complected man. Even the Dallas police chief, when he was in the hallway, was saying, we're looking for the Negro that picked him up. We understand that he was picked up by a Negro, and we're looking for him. And anybody who has any information, let us know. Come and tell us. So you have that, and then you have Oswald supposedly saying during his interrogation that the station wagon he got into belonged to Mrs. Payne. Well, maybe Mrs. Payne picked him up. Who knows? But it's not corroborated. It's an allegation. But who knows how he got out of there? The thing is, he got back to his apartment.
Ruth Payne in blackface.
Yeah, Ruth Payne in black. Maybe. Who knows? Nowadays, you can never. Who knows? You got politicians doing blackface and everything else. And
the thing about that is, Craig was backed up by, I think, 2 other witnesses who were actually behind that Rambler station wagon who saw it pull over and pick people up. They were interviewed by the FBI. And also John Martin Jr.
I think one woman said if it wasn't Oswald, it was his exact twin.
Yeah. And John Martin Jr., he filmed a little bit in Dealey Plaza from Houston Street and then went on the top of the knoll and filmed some more. And he was a worker at the Postal Annex building. But he says he saw Oswald get into a gray-colored Nash Rambler with a black driver as well.
Yeah.
So there's corroboration for Oswald leaving this way, not just from Roger Craig, but again, who knows for sure? For sure.
And if it's not Oswald, what's he doing coming out of the building?
Right.
If it's one of the Cubans that happens to look like Oswald.
In a hurry. Yeah.
How is he? What's he doing in that building?
Exactly. All right. The emailer goes on to say, it's my theory that whoever was in charge of planning the assassination was playing key players against each other, expertly controlling information flow to and between the conspirators. This has several key strengths. Firstly, it reduces the impact of leaks because people only know small details and only have knowledge of their actions. It also means that any investigation will be obfuscated, as interrogating one person can only yield so much information. It also means you can recruit people to act on your behalf under different motives and explanations, which makes it even harder to join the dots retrospectively in an investigation, as you need a large number of puzzle pieces before the picture makes sense. There are two examples of key players in the assignation which had knowledge of the assignation plot, but no obvious motive for Tippit. He was clearly tasked with finding Oswald after the shooting, but was seemingly unaware he would be shot. What did he know about the assignation? Was his role to be a mock arrest, or to smuggle Oswald out of state, or to kill the fleeing murderer of the president, or to arrest the fleeing murderer of the president? His motive is unclear. What leverage would the planners have over him in order for him to be a key part post-shooting? Let's address that a little bit. Tippit was no saint, no angel. A lot of these Dallas police guys weren't back then. The working side jobs, having mistresses. I think, it's accused that Tippit had a mistress, and Johnny Maxwell Witherspoon, and may have even gotten her pregnant at the time. So who knows what kind of leverage they had over this guy?
There was an allegation that Tippit was involved in some kind of narcotics.
Right. Yeah. There was
that was brought up.
All kinds of stuff.
That was brought up during Chief Curry's testimony. They asked him. They said, "Did you know that Tippit was involved in some kind of narcotics, illegal narcotics?" And Curry said, "I didn't know anything about it." And so there was that allegation that Tippit was involved in some kind of narcotics. And who was doing narcotics at the time? The CIA. CIA was bringing narcotics into the country. Mm-hmm. And they were involved in mind control and other things that they were doing. So they were deep into drugs, the CIA. So who's to say that Tippit's killer was Oswald? Because when they finally got that banana head, what's his name, Ted Calloway, when they got him on the stand during that, remember that farcical Lee Harvey Oswald on trial thing they did with Bugliosi and Gary Spence? Well, when Spence got him on the stand, he asked him, he showed him a picture of Billy Lovelady on the steps of the Texas School Book Depository and said to him, "Do you recognize that man?" And he said, "Vaguely, faintly." That was his answer. He says, who is that? And he said, "It's a resemblance of Lee Harvey Oswald." So I said, well, there he is. He's identifying Billy Lovelady as Lee Harvey Oswald. All right? And then people are saying, no, he said it was a resemblance of Lee Harvey Oswald. Well, he also said that he vaguely and faintly remembered him. Who was he talking about if he wasn't talking about Oswald? And so I got the crickets. You know what I mean? The crickets routine, but they didn't. Yeah. They couldn't answer that. So here's Calloway's story that he has 5 gunshots. He comes out of his office in the car lot, comes out to the sidewalk. He sees a man with a gun, reloading the gun, coming down the street, and he decides, unarmed, that he's going to confront him. He's going to challenge him. "Hey, man, what's going on?" Now, yeah. I'm not a coward, but if I see a guy and I'm unarmed, I see a guy coming down the street with a gun, I'm ducking out of sight. I don't want this guy to see that I saw him. that I can identify him. I'm not going to confront him. I mean, this Calloway must have balls of steel or something, or no brains, one or the other, because nobody's going to do something like that. But that's his story. But then he gets up to the after the guy goes by, he tells one of his workers at the car lot, follow that man. The guy says, hell no, he's got a gun. I'm not following him. Are you crazy? So he goes up to where he heard the gunshots fired and comes to the murder scene, the Tippett murder scene. He asked Domingo Benavides, who's his mechanic from that lot, happened to be there. He asked him, which way did he go? Well, if you just confronted the guy on Patton Ave, why are you asking him which way he went? And I don't think he ever did see the guy. I think he did exactly what I would have done. He ducked behind the cars and stayed there until the guy was out of sight. But his story is hardly believable. And plus him and the other guy, the lot porter there, Sam Ginyard, when they testified, they gave their story as which side of the street the guy came down. They had him on different sides of the street. They didn't agree on which side of the street he was on. I mean, how do you verify what either one of them is saying when they don't match? So I think they were both
so many problems with those Tippett witnesses. My God.
And Helen Markham, the one who positively identified Oswald, right? They get her in a lineup with two detectives and a police clerk and Oswald. So Oswald's handcuffed between number 1 and number 3. Oswald's number 2. He's handcuffed between the two detectives. One detective's wearing a brown suit jacket and is 34 years old. He doesn't match the Tippett killer. The other detective is blonde with a white short sleeve shirt and a red vest. He certainly doesn't match the description of the Tippett killer. And the last guy, the police clerk, is wearing a gray woolen sweater. He certainly doesn't match the description of the Tippett killer. So who are they going to pick? They're going to pick the guy that's battered and bruised and it's handcuffed between the two detectives. That's who they're going to pick. And even then, she hesitated because they kept asking her, which one, she said. And she testified that she had never seen any of the 4 before in her life. Even at the Tippett murder, she never seen any of them before. So she picked a guy that she had never seen before, and she knew he wasn't the killer. But she had to pick somebody, so she picked him. That was their positive identification of Oswald from Helen Markham. And Helen Markham was all over the place. She said
the number 2 man. Yes.
The killer had gray pants, and Oswald was wearing black pants. She was all over the place. And her son even said she lies even to her son. She can't, even to her own family, she lies. She can't be dependent on anything. Anything she says is you take with a huge grain of salt, because she told all kinds of lies. She say she went over to Tippett and she tried to revive him or something, or he said something to her before he died or something, and he was, according to the autopsy,
talked to him for 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, I mean, the ambulance was there in 2, but she talked to him for 10. So a lot of things she said that she wasn't a very reliable witness. Neither was Calloway.
All right, George, that's about half of your email we got through, but for the sake of time, we're gonna move on.
Thanks, George. We appreciate that,
a lot
buddy.
of your stuff. Yep. Thank you, George.
Thank you very much, sir.
Pond. All right, next up, we have an email from Bob's Taint. Bob's Taint.
Bob
If I'm saying that correctly. Yes, Bob's Taint. Bob's Taint.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. It says, yo, the Kennedy family seems like a lot of them don't back RFK Jr. or his views on the assassinations. What do you think the deal is there? Wouldn't it be better if they supported him? Why aren't they interested to dig into the shenanigans that went on? Sincerely, BZ. Well, Bob, RFK Jr. has certainly said a lot here in the past couple months regarding the assassination, not only of his uncle and his father. And it's something we've probably been wanting to hear from him for a very long time. And the rest of the Kennedy family, I think, has chosen to remain publicly silent about the matter for the part, because it is such a personal thing for them. And I think RFK Jr. coming out and saying a lot of what he said, but blaming the CIA for the murder of his uncle and father is pretty big deal. It kind of puts a target on his back, and he's running for president.
And they won't give him any.
These couple conference. Yeah, go ahead.
They won't give him any Secret Service protection either. Imagine that.
Right.
My question
to the White House.
Imagine that they won't give this guy any Secret Service.
Now, here's the thing: what about Nikki? Like people like Nikki Haley, Chris Christie? Do they have Secret Service protection yet?
That I don't know, but I think under the circumstances with the assassinations in his family and stuff, I think it's certainly warranted.
Yeah, well, ultimately, it's Biden's call whether or not.
Yeah, it is, and I think that if you're going to give it to anybody,
protection.
If you're going to give it to anybody, you should give it to RFK Jr.
Right. I mean, it's his fellow Democrat whose entire family has been, taken out before. So it just seems like the decent thing to do, but apparently he's definitely not getting it. So
you guys think that maybe RFK Jr., knowing what we know about the Secret Service in the past, may do better just to hire his own security? Like maybe they're a little more trustworthy, Well,
yeah. I don't
think so. I don't think so.
He caught that guy a couple weeks ago with the false security credentials trying to get into one of his rallies. Yeah. That was all his security people. So, he's got the money.
If he's got good security people, it didn't help his father in Los Angeles.
True. But I think back then it was a little easier to maybe impersonate security guard or a cop and get close and get into places. Nowadays, I mean, as strict and as all the security stuff is, definitely a little harder with facial recognition software and all this stuff, metal detectors, X-ray crap. But yeah, if he's smart, he's going to have himself a crack team. I know I would at all times. All right, next up, we have an email from Matt, L.A. Dodgers. And JFK assassination witness breaks his silence and raises new questions. The New York Times, he sent us this article about Paul Landis, which we already addressed on the show. But thank you, Matt, for sending it. We might have missed it, but we didn't. But thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, next from Larry Gibbons. I just saw this on YouTube and thought you might find it interesting. It shows some pictures of dark-complected man using a radio, which I haven't seen before, and some potential movement of the fence on the triple overpass grassy knoll area next to the storm drain. Could these be the storm drains which Garrison talks about during a radio interview before trial? It would be great if you could discuss this on your show and let everyone know your thoughts on the matter. Keep up the great work. Kind regards, Larry Gibbons. Now, Larry, we talked a little bit about the dark-complected man already and his use of a radio. And Gil actually touched on the storm drain theory. Now, I know you're talking about the ones on the street, Gil, but also up behind the fence, there's another entrance into the storm drain system.
Right.
Where you take these two grates that are side by side, you can take those off, which led down to a tunnel, which actually exited the front side of the overpass concrete. That hole, that's this drainage pipe, has since been covered up, patched, as in non-existent anymore. But it was there in 1963. So that's interesting. But I believe when I was there, the grates are still there behind the wooden fence. But what do you think about that, Gil?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility somebody could be shooting from that direction.
Yeah, because you're in front of the car, right?
Yep.
You could be lying down in that storm drain with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
You would have, you'd have good cover. You wouldn't be seen, and you'd be laying down, which would prevent a lot of movement on your rifle. You could prop it up or put a rest or something under the barrel, and be very accurate from that position.
Yeah.
And you could just chill in there until everybody went away, and then come out and nobody would see you.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty interesting stuff. What do you think about that, Doug?
I agree with you, dude. 100%.
All right, next up we have an email from Dr. Haywood Jablomi.
We've heard from old Haywood before, right?
Yes, Dr. Haywood Jablomi.
Oh, he's a doctor.
Right. Yeah, he's a doctor now. He must have passed his doctorate. He says.
Holy shit, wonderfuck.
All right. It says, hey, Rob, not much to do with the JFK assassination, but I thought with your sense of humor, you'd get a kick out of the name of the President of Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy. This guy's name, who is the President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, otherwise known as PACE. On January the 24th, 2022, he was elected as president, and his name is Tiny Cox. Tinykox. Tiny Cox. And there's a picture of him.
What?
And he looks like a Tiny Cox.
His name is
sure.
Tiny Cox?
His name is Tiny Cox.
Yeah, no,
Only
it's not.
in Europe.
Only in Europe.
God,
Thank you, Europeans.
He said it could be related to Jack Ruby, though. He would just eat him and stuff like this here. Best Dr. Haywood Jablomi. All right.
Fuck
Thank
Jack
you, doctor.
Ruby, dirty bastard.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for the informative email, buddy. Appreciate that.
All right. Last up, this last email, fellas. From our old buddy, Tony Fredianelli, former guitarist, Third Eye Blind, Doug's favorite band. All right.
God damn it.
Go ahead, Rob.
He says, I do appreciate the work you're doing out there. You all seem to be the most active, and this subject is super important to me. I just wanted to tell you, regardless of various disagreements, that's the problem with the community itself. Too much silly infighting. No one has the full answers. I don't care who they are. Even Garrison, who I admire the most. I'm sure on many fronts, from fact subsequently released, he would not hold ridiculously onto ideas that facts outgrew. Okay. To me, far more important than all the minutia, is that how you spell minutia? Is what the assassination meant to our form of government, and few people want to talk about that. If you want to get caught up in Daley Plaza, they want to get caught up in Cuba, to Oswald, go to Mexico, all this nonsense misdirection. Anyway, I just wanted to give you some words of support.
Thank you.
Cheers, Tony. Oh, thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. We think, yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And keep them coming. Everybody,
yes.
Keep those emails coming, especially Hugh Janus and Tony. You guys, keep them coming.
Yeah, and the regulars, and Jones Mellons, and Tim the Eugenesis Sweatpants, and Bob's Taint, all the good stuff here. And some of the more legitimate ones that you actually have a real question that we can answer and address for you here on the show.
We would
rather
like
than just making us laugh incessantly.
And we would like to take this opportunity to solicit more serious ones, if we could. Thank you.
You know we're going to get the opposite now, Doug. You know that, right?
Well, that's the way it
can't
works.
solicit legitimate emails.
That's the way it works, Rob. We don't have to like
but
it.
If
But
you
we
would like to have your email, folks, read and commented on this very show, we don't screen these things. We don't filter them out.
Obviously.
We don't read them ahead of time. So you're getting our genuine live reactions when we read your emails here on the show. But if you'd like to send an email to us, do so at quickhits@gmail.com. That's quickhits@gmail.com. And we'll read your email right here on the show and comment about it. We may bust your balls. We may make fun of you. But we may be sincerely appreciative of your efforts.
Right.
So,
and
they're
Rob,
one of the
you
best
know what we
parts of
tell
the
them.
show. What's that?
Whether it's funny or whether it's not, one thing you need to know.
Know what you're talking about before you spout off.
Please. That's all we're saying.
Yes. And that's it for the emails, folks.
That is it for the emails. Well, I guess, we got to take this opportunity, Rob, before we close things out, to thank our guest, Mr. Gil Jesus, for joining us. Thank you, Gil.
Thank you for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Dude, you going to come back? Down the road?
Absolutely.
There you go. Well, there you go, Rob. He's going to come back down the road, and let's face it, that's basically all we can hope for when we have people on the show, right? I mean, if they'll say, sure, I'll come back, then it was a good experience, right?
True.
Yeah. Well, look, dude, we are right up.
Gil's one of the good ones. He's one of my listeners' favorite guests. And he's always has a wealth of knowledge. And so, Gil, real quick, tell everybody where they can find more of you and your stuff.
On my website, gil-jesus, JESUS.com. The website is called Was Lee Harvey Oswald Really Guilty? And it's an examination of the evidence in the case against Oswald. So if you could go there, you can take a look at some of my videos on YouTube. I have 2 channels. JFK 63 Conspiracy is one, and just do a search for Gil Jesus. And you can find my works all over the internet. Just if you do a web search for Gil Jesus JFK, all different words, and you'll see some of the writings I have on there if you don't get the website. But the website should pop up.
Yep, that's Gil with one L, Jesus like our Lord and Savior.
Amen.
And you will find him and all this stuff. Amen.
That's
Doug.
Thanks, guys.
Amen. Thank you, Gil. So, Rob, let's close this thing out. Tell us where we can find your stuff, buddy. There's the music. Thanks, Momo.
Yep, you can find the Lone Gunman podcast just about anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Also, pay attention to the Lone Gunman podcast YouTube channel. If you are not, I would suggest that you do, because something big is coming. And that's all I'll say for right now. So just pay attention. Go give yourself a subscribe to the Lone Gunman podcast channel, and stay tuned for big things. And me and my buddy Joe will be presenting at Lancer this year. We got a bunch of new info, exciting info, stuff you might want to hear. So you might want to tune into that as well. That's it for me, Doug.
All right. And, oh, by the way, regardless of what Rob keeps saying on the Lone Gunman podcast, I am not presenting at Lancer. I'm just hanging out. So, and you can find, follow, download, and listen to my podcast, The Dallas Action, presented by Wall Street Window, at Spreaker.com, Spotify, all over the web. Whatever your mobile app of choice is, you can find it there, featuring quality, up-to-date, forward-moving, and forward-thinking research and analysis of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, like this show, another fine podcast from Drop D Podcast Productions in the heart of Music Row, Music City, USA. So, for Rob Clark, for Gil Jesus and Momo Scaranucci, this is Doug Campbell saying, tune in again next time when we'll hear a 5th grade classmate of David Ferry say,
And I remember that dude, for 50 cents, he'd let you see his wiener. Or he would just show you his wiener for no money.
we are out.
Peace.
Le croissant.